The sound of a rifle shot carries differently at 8,000 feet. It cuts through the thin mountain air like a blade through silk, sharp and clean, leaving no echo, just a momentary violence that the wind swallows whole. In the darkness above Firebase Olympus, that sound came once, precise and final, followed by silence so complete it felt like the world had stopped breathing. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb was halfway to the guard tower before his brain caught up with his legs. 41 years old, muscles built from 2 decades of carrying other men's weight, he moved fast for his size. The tower ladder rattled under his boots. At the top, he found her exactly where he knew she would be. Sergeant Maya Chen lay prone behind the Barrett, her eye still pressed to the scope, her finger outside the trigger guard. The suppressor glowed faint orange in the dark. She did not move when Webb reached her, did not flinch when he put his hand on the tower rail hard enough to make it shake. "Cease fire." His voice came out harder than he meant it to. Maya lowered the rifle with the same careful precision she used for everything. Hands steady, breathing controlled. She looked up at him with eyes that held no apology. "I had to." Webb scanned the valley below through his NVGs. Green phosphor wash, empty ridgeline, no movement, no heat signatures, no targets. He pulled the goggles down and looked at her again. "There's nothing out there." Maya sat up slowly, pulled the rifle across her lap, ejected the magazine with a smooth click. There was. "Chen." He kept his voice level, calm, the voice he used for soldiers on the edge. "What did you see?" She met his eyes for exactly 2 seconds, then looked past him toward the darkness beyond the wire. "What I always see. What nobody else does." Before he could respond, she stood, slung the rifle across her chest, and climbed down the ladder without another word. Webb watched her walk across the firebase toward the sleeping tents, a shadow moving through shadows, and felt the first cold edge of something he had not felt in a long time. Fear, not of the enemy, of what might be happening inside his own walls. He keyed his radio. "Actual, this is Webb. We need to talk about Chen." The response came back tired and irritated. "It's 0300, Webb. Can it wait?" Webb looked down into the valley again. Still empty. Still quiet. "No, sir, it really can't." The screen went black. White text appeared. 96 hours earlier. The Chinook dropped through cloud cover like a stone, rotors beating the air into submission, and Maya Chen felt nothing. She sat in the Webb seat with her rifle between her knees, barrel down, stock pressed against her thigh. The loadmaster was yelling something about landing zone winds, but his voice got lost in the turbine scream. Across from her, 3 Marines she did not know tried not to stare. She felt their eyes anyway. They always stared at the files before they stared at the person. Sergeant Maya Chen, 27 years old, force reconnaissance, 47 confirmed kills, 8 months medical leave, Syria incident classified. The numbers told a story the numbers could not finish. The rest lived in the silence she carried like a second rifle. The Chinook hit ground hard. Dust storm, the ramp dropped and she was moving before the loadmaster finished waving them out. Firebase Olympus materialized through the brown haze like something half real. HESCO barriers stacked 12 feet high, guard towers at each corner, tents clustered tight around a central operations bunker. Mountains rose on 3 sides, gray stone and patches of snow that never melted even in summer. The 4th side dropped into a valley so deep the bottom stayed dark even at noon. Paktika Province, Afghanistan, elevation 8,200 feet, population 41 Marines, life expectancy classified. Marcus Webb stood waiting at the helipad, big hands on his hips, eyes hidden behind Oakley's even though the sun was already dropping behind the western ridge. She recognized him immediately. Same broad shoulders, same way of standing, like he was rooted to the earth. They had trained together 6 years ago at Stone Bay. He had been a sergeant then, building room clearance drills that left everyone bloody and smarter. Now he wore staff sergeant chevrons and a scar across his throat that had not been there before. He extended his hand. "Sergeant Chen, welcome to Olympus." Maya looked at his hand for 2 full seconds before she took it. His grip was firm, but not aggressive. Testing. She matched the pressure exactly and let go first. "Staff Sergeant, you good?" The question came casual, but his eyes were doing the real asking behind the dark lenses. "Always." A lie so practiced it sounded like truth. Webb's mouth twitched like he knew it, but was choosing not to call it out. "Not yet." He glanced at her pack, standard issue Alice rig that should have been stuffed tight for a 3-month rotation. It sagged light against her shoulders. Travel light? I don't need much. He turned and started walking toward the tent line. She followed. Lieutenant Morrison wants to see you before you rack out. He's by the book, so fair warning. Regulations matter here. They matter everywhere. Not like this, they don't. Webb stopped at a tent marked OPS and pulled back the flap. Inside, a young officer bent over a map table, red lens headlamp casting his face in shadow and blood. He looked up when they entered. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, 29 years old, blonde hair cut high and tight, blue eyes that had not yet learned what losing people actually cost. He stood and extended his hand with the kind of rigid formality they taught at Quantico. Sergeant Chen, I read your file. He paused like he expected her to respond to that. She did not. I'm sorry about Syria, about your people. Maya's face did not change. Thank you, sir. Morrison waited for more. When nothing came, he cleared his throat and gestured at the map. We run a tight ship here. Patrol rotations every 48 hours. Resupply weekly if weather holds. Rules of engagement are clear and non-negotiable. You'll bunk with Lance Corporal Blake. Weapon rack is by the tent door. Standard procedure. I keep my rifle with me. The words came flat. Morrison's eyes flicked to Webb, then back to her. Regulations state personal weapons are racked when not in use. Prevents accidents. I don't have accidents. Silence filled the tent like cold water. Morrison's jaw worked. Webb stepped in smooth, voice easy. Sir, Force Recon snipers often maintain contact with their primary weapons. Training protocol, old habit. Morrison looked at Maya for a long moment. She held his gaze without blinking. Finally, he nodded once, sharp. Fine, but bolt open when you sleep. I see a closed bolt in a sleeping area. We'll have a different conversation. Yes, sir. Webb will show you to your bunk. Get settled. Briefing at 0600. He turned back to his map. Dismissal clear. Outside, Webb walked her toward the eastern tent line. The sun was almost gone now, just a red slash above the mountains. Shadows stretched long and thin across the firebase. Somewhere a generator coughed to life. He's young, Webb said, not quite an apology. He's an officer. That too. Webb stopped at a tent, pulled the flap aside. This is you. Blake's already inside. She's good people. Try not to scare her. I don't scare people. Webb's expression said otherwise, but he just nodded and left. Maya ducked inside. The tent was standard issue, 8x10, 2 cots, 2 footlockers, a single LED lantern hanging from the center pole. On the far cot, a woman sat cross-legged, cleaning a carbine with practiced efficiency. Lance Corporal Sarah Blake, 26, blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, hands that moved like they knew exactly what they were doing. She looked up when Maya entered, smiled with her mouth but not quite her eyes. You must be Chen, I'm Blake. She set the carbine aside. Welcome to the Olympus Hilton. 5-star accommodations, room service never, and the neighbors are actively trying to kill you. You'll love it. Maya did not respond. She moved to the empty cot, set her pack down, pulled out her rifle case. The Barrett came out piece by piece. Upper receiver, lower, barrel, suppressor, scope. She assembled it with the mechanical precision of someone who had done it 10,000 times in the dark. Blake watched. You always sleep with that thing. Yes. Why? Maya locked the final pin, checked the bolt, set the rifle down with the barrel facing the tent door, not toward her cot. So I don't die. Blake blinked. That's cheerful. It's practical. Right. Blake went back to cleaning her carbine. The sound of the bore brush filled the silence. After a minute, she spoke again, quieter. I heard about Syria, about your LT, I'm sorry. Maya's hand stopped moving for half a second, then continued stripping a magazine, checking the spring tension. Everyone's sorry. Does that help? No. Blake nodded like she understood, though she probably did not, and let the conversation die. Maya finished her weapons check, set her magazines in a line on the footlocker, pulled off her boots but not her socks. She lay down on the cot, fully clothed, rifle within arm's reach, and stared at the tent ceiling. Blake turned off the lantern. Darkness dropped like a curtain. You really don't sleep? Blake's voice came soft from across the tent. Not much. Why? Maya closed her eyes but did not answer. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw a rooftop in Syria, a scope reticle, 2 children standing too close to a man who was about to kill 6 Marines. She saw her finger on the trigger, saw it not pulling, saw what happened next. She opened her eyes, because someone has to watch. The night passed in pieces. Somewhere around midnight, Maya heard footsteps outside the tent, slow and careful. They stopped near the entrance, stayed for 30 seconds, then moved on. She lay perfectly still, hand on her rifle, counting heartbeats. Blake slept through it. Most people did. At 1:30, the dog started barking. Firebase Olympus had 3 strays that lived off marine scraps and kept the rat population honest. They barked at everything: wind, shadows, their own tails. Maya listened to the pattern. 3 barks, pause, 2 barks, pause. Sustained barking for 40 seconds, then silence. She made a mental note. Normal pattern, baseline. At 0300, she sat up, pulled on her boots, picked up her rifle. Blake stirred. Where are you going? Perimeter check. That's not your watch. I know. Maya slipped outside before Blake could argue. The fire base at night was a different animal. Shadows between shadows. The guard towers lit with red lenses that preserved night vision, but turned everything into a horror movie. She walked the inner perimeter, rifle slung low, eyes scanning not for threats, but for patterns. The dog pens were near the southern wall. All 3 animals lay curled together, not sleeping but resting. One lifted its head when Maya approached, ears up, then settled back down. She noted the time, 0312. Dogs calm. She continued around the wire. At the eastern tower, she found Corporal Ryan Torres on watch, hunched against the cold, radio handset against his ear, half asleep. He jerked upright when he saw her. Jesus, Chen, you trying to give me a heart attack? Just walking. At 0300, can't sleep. Torres studied her with eyes that had not yet learned kindness. Yeah, I heard. Syria fucked you up good, huh? Maya's expression did not change. Something like that. Word is you froze, got your whole team smoked because you wouldn't pull the trigger. He said it casual, like commenting on the weather, testing her, seeing if she would break. Is that what word is? That's what the file says. Files say a lot of things. Maya turned and walked away before he could respond. Behind her, she heard him mutter something crude and dismissive. She did not care. She had heard worse, from better men. She completed the circuit and returned to her tent. Blake was awake now, sitting up, watching her. You okay? Fine. You don't seem fine. Maya set her rifle down in exactly the same position as before, barrel toward the door. I'm always fine. Blake did not look convinced, but she lay back down anyway. Within minutes, her breathing evened out into sleep. Maya stayed sitting back against the tent pole and watched the entrance. At 0422, she heard the sound. Faint, metal on metal, a click so soft most people would have missed it. She turned her head slowly. Her rifle lay exactly where she had left it, but something was different. The bolt. She had left it open. Now it was closed. Maya stood in one smooth motion, no sound, and moved to the weapon. She examined it under her red lens headlamp. Bolt definitely closed. She had not touched it. Blake was asleep across the tent. No one else had entered. She ran her hand along the rifle's rail system, checking for disturbance. Her fingers found something. A hair, long, black, caught between the scope mount and the rail. She pulled it free carefully, held it up to the light. Not hers. Her hair was cut short, barely 2 inches. This hair was at least 4 inches long. She looked at Blake. Blonde. She looked around the tent for any other possible source. Nothing. Maya placed the hair in a small plastic bag from her medical kit, sealed it, and tucked it into her cargo pocket. Then she opened the bolt again, checked the chamber, and sat back down. Someone had touched her rifle. Someone who should not have been in this tent. She did not sleep for the rest of the night. When Blake's alarm went off at 5:45, Maya was already dressed, rifle cleaned, ready. Blake rubbed her eyes and looked over. Did you sleep at all? No. Chen, you can't go 3 months without sleep. I've done longer. Blake shook her head and started getting dressed. You're going to burn out. Maybe. They walked to the chow tent together, Blake trying to make conversation, Maya offering single-word responses. The tent was loud with morning voices, Marines joking and complaining in equal measure. Maya took a tray, filled it with food she did not want, and sat alone in the corner. Webb found her there. He sat down across from her without asking, set his tray down, and studied her face. You look like hell. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. How much sleep did you get? Enough. That's not an answer. Maya looked up at him. 4 hours. Another lie. She was getting good at them. Webb did not buy it, but he let it go. Morrison wants you at the briefing in 10. Try to look less like a ghost. I'll do my best. The briefing was standard. Morrison laid out patrol routes, threat assessments, rules of engagement. Maya listened with half her attention, the other half running through the hair she had found. Black, 4 inches, human. Not from anyone in her tent. That meant someone had accessed her space while she slept, or while she was out walking the perimeter. Someone who moved quietly enough that Blake had not woken. Someone who wanted her to know they had been there. Chen. Morrison's voice cut through her thoughts. You paying attention? Yes, sir. Then tell me what I just said. Patrol departs at 0800, 10-man element. Route blue through the Southern Valley. Expected duration 6 hours. ROE is weapons tight unless fired upon. Morrison's jaw tightened. Good. You're on base security today. Get familiar with our setup. Webb will walk you through it. After the briefing, Webb took her around the firebase. Guard tower positions, weapon emplacements, communication protocols. Maya absorbed it all while simultaneously mapping sight lines, dead zones, approach vectors. Her sniper brain never turned off. They stopped at the eastern tower, the highest point on the base. From here, the entire valley spread out below, gray and brown and empty. This is your playground, Webb said. Best view on Olympus. 800-meter clear sight line to the valley floor, 1,200 to the far ridge. Wind's tricky this high, but you probably knew that. Maya looked through the tower's spotting scope. Clean glass, good optics. She scanned the valley slowly, methodically, the way she had been trained. Ridge line, tree line, boulder field. Dead space behind the rocks. Everything logged, everything noted. How long have you been here? She asked. 6 months, 3 more to go. Contact frequency? Taliban probe once, maybe twice a week. Usually small arms from the ridge. Nothing serious. They're testing us more than fighting us. Webb paused. Why? Maya did not answer immediately. She was still scanning. The valley. What's the approach time from the far ridge to the wire? On foot? 30 minutes if they're careful, 15 if they're not. And at night? Longer. Terrain's rough. Why? Maya lowered the scope and looked at him, just trying to understand the ground. Webb studied her face. You see something I should know about? Not yet. That night, Maya volunteered for first watch. Morrison approved it without comment. She climbed the eastern tower at 2,100, Barrett across her shoulders, and settled into position. The sun had already dropped behind the mountains, leaving only residual light, purple fading to black. The dog started barking at 2,200. Right on time. Maya listened to the pattern. 3 barks, pause, 2 barks, pause, sustained barking, same as the night before. Then at 2,214 they stopped. Complete silence. Maya lifted the rifle, eyed a scope, scanning the valley floor. Night vision mode engaged, green phosphor world, empty ridgeline, no movement. The silence stretched. 5 minutes, 10. At 2,247 she saw it, a reflection. Tiny, brief, 800 meters out, just below the far ridge. Moonlight off glass, there and gone in less than a second, but she had seen it. Someone was watching the firebase. She keyed her TARU, actual overwatch, possible observation post, bearing 274, range 800. Morrison's voice came back irritated. Overwatch, what's your evidence? Reflection off glass, binoculars or scope? Can you confirm? Maya kept her eye to the scope. The position was dark now. Whoever was there had moved or covered their optics. Negative, single flash, no repeat. Copy, maintain observation. Do not engage unless you have positive ID and hostile action. Roger. Maya stayed on that spot for 3 hours. No further movement, no additional reflections. At 0200, she finally lowered the rifle and rubbed her eyes. Maybe she had imagined it. Maybe Torres was right and Syria had broken something in her brain that saw threats and shadows. But she did not think so. At dawn, Morrison sent a patrol to check the position she had marked. Maya watched through the tower scope as they climbed the ridge, spread out in standard formation, and swept the area. They found nothing. Torres was on the patrol. When they returned, he made sure Maya heard his report. There's nothing out there, Chen. No fighting positions, no trash, no footprints. You're seeing ghosts. Maybe nothing. You had us hump up that ridge for 2 hours because you saw a reflection that wasn't there. Maya did not argue. She just walked back to her tent and added a note to her logbook. Day 1, dog silent 2,214. Reflection 2,247. Patrol found nothing. Pattern establishing. On day 3, she found the stone. It was small, unremarkable. One of 10,000 rocks scattered around the Firebase perimeter, but it had been moved. Recently. Maya could tell by the moisture underneath, the way the dry surface did not match the surrounding ground. She photographed it with her phone, close up, showing the faint ridge pattern in the dust. A fingerprint. She brought it to Morrison. He looked at the photo, looked at the rock, looked at her. This is what you're bringing me? A rock? Someone touched it, recently. Chen, we're on a firebase. People touch rocks. It happens. Not outside the wires, sir. Not in a position that requires someone to be prone and concealed. Morrison sighed. I'll send it to Intel, but I'm telling you now, they're going to say it's inconclusive. He was right. Intel came back 12 hours later with exactly that word. Inconclusive. Possible animal disturbance. Possible weather. Possible anything except what Maya knew it was. Webb found her that evening, sitting alone near the eastern wall, cleaning her rifle for the third time that day. Morrison showed me the photo. And I see what you see, but seeing isn't proving. Maya ran the bore brush through the barrel, smooth strokes, methodical. I don't need to prove anything. I just need to be ready. Ready for what? She looked up at him. For when everyone else finally sees it too. Webb crouched beside her, voice low. Talk to me, Maya. Real talk. What's going on in your head? She wanted to tell him, wanted to explain that her brain worked differently now, that Syria had rewired something fundamental, that she could not stop seeing patterns and threats and shadows that moved wrong. But the words would not come. They never did. I'm fine. You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You're seeing things that might not be there. Webb paused. You need to talk to someone. A chaplain, a counselor, someone. I talk to you. I mean a professional. You are a professional. You know what I mean. Maya went back to cleaning her rifle. I appreciate your concern, Staff Sergeant, but I'm good. Webb stood slowly, joints cracking. For what it's worth, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're scared, and scared can be just as dangerous. He walked away before she could respond. Maya sat alone as darkness fell, the rifle across her knees, and wondered if he was right. Maybe she was scared. Maybe Syria had broken her ability to trust anything, including her own eyes. But that night when the dogs went silent at 22:10, she knew she was not imagining it. And when she found her rifle bolt closed again the next morning, a second hair caught in the rail mount, she knew someone was sending a message. They wanted her to know they could reach her. They wanted her afraid. She tucked the second hair into another plastic bag and added it to her pocket. Then she made a decision. If they wanted to play games, she would play. But she would play to win. On day 4, Morrison called her to the operations tent. When she arrived, Webb was already there, along with the Navy corpsman who served as the Firebase's medical officer and part-time counselor. Morrison gestured to a chair. Sit. Maya sat. The corpsman opened a notebook. Sergeant Chen, I'm going to ask you some questions. Standard wellness check. How many hours of sleep have you gotten in the last 72 hours? Enough. That's not an answer. Maya looked at Morrison. Sir, is this mandatory? Yes. She turned back to the corpsman. 12 hours total. 12 hours and 3 days? Yes. The corpsman wrote something down. Are you experiencing nightmares, flashbacks, or intrusive thoughts? No. Are you having difficulty concentrating or staying focused? No. Have you had thoughts of harming yourself or others? No. The questions continued. Standard PTSD screening, the same battery Maya had completed 6 times during her medical leave. She gave the same answers she always gave, the ones that sounded healthy without being suspiciously perfect. Finally, the corpsman set down his pen. Sergeant, I'd like to talk about Syria. Maya's hands tightened on the chair arms. It's in the file. I'd like to hear it from you. Silence filled the tent. Morrison and Webb both watched her, waiting. There was a target, Maya said finally. High value. Lieutenant Hale ordered me to take the shot. There were civilians in proximity, children. I hesitated. The target detonated a suicide vest. 6 Marines died, including Lieutenant Hale. And you blame yourself? Yes. Do you think you made the right call? Maya met his eyes. I made the call I could live with, but 6 people died. I know. So you could live with their deaths, but not the deaths of the children? The question landed like a punch. Maya's jaw clenched. That's not fair. War isn't fair, Sergeant, but I need to know if you can still do your job. I can do my job. Can you pull the trigger when ordered? The tent went absolutely still. Maya felt Morrison and Webb both leaning in, waiting for her answer. She thought about the reflection on the ridge, the moved stone, the hairs on her rifle. Someone out there was probing their defenses, testing their awareness, preparing for something. Yes, she said, When the threat is real, I can pull the trigger. The corpsman wrote more notes. The lieutenant tells me you have been reporting possible enemy activity that patrols haven't been able to confirm. Can you explain that? I'm observing patterns, disturbances that indicate surveillance or probe attempts. Patterns no one else sees? Patterns no one else is looking for. Sergeant Chen, is it possible you're experiencing hypervigilance, seeing threats that aren't actually there? Maya leaned forward. Is it possible everyone else is experiencing complacency, missing threats that are actually there? Morrison cut in. Easy, Chen. She sat back, breathing controlled. The corpsman closed his notebook. I'm recommending continued monitoring. No duty restrictions at this time, but we'll check in weekly. He looked at Morrison. She's functional, but she's running on fumes. She needs real sleep. After he left, Morrison stood. Chen, you're a good Marine, but if you can't separate real threats from perceived ones, you're a liability. Get your head straight. Yes, sir. Webb walked her out. At the tent entrance, he stopped her. The hair you found, you still have it? Yes. Give it to me. I'll run it through intel again, quietly. No official report. Maya pulled the 2 plastic bags from her pocket and handed them over. Webb held them up to the light, studying the black strands. These don't match anyone on base, he said quietly. Not in length, not in texture. I know. So either someone's contaminating your gear deliberately or... He trailed off. Or someone who shouldn't be here is here. Webb looked at her for a long moment. You realize how that sounds? I realize how it sounds when you say it out loud. Doesn't make it less true. He pocketed the bags. I'll see what I can find out. In the meantime, try to get some actual sleep. You look like death. That night, Maya lay on her cot, rifle beside her, and tried to follow orders. She closed her eyes, controlled her breathing, tried to let her body rest. At 2,300, she heard footsteps outside the tent. Slow, deliberate. They stopped at the entrance. Maya's hand found her rifle in the dark. The footsteps stayed there for 30 seconds, then moved on. She counted to 60, then slipped outside. The firebase was dark except for the red glow from the guard towers. She followed the direction the footsteps had gone, moving silent on the balls of her feet. Near the eastern wall, she found Torres leaning against a barrier, smoking a cigarette. He saw her approach and smiled without warmth. Can't sleep, Chen? No. Yeah, I bet. He took a drag. You know what I think? I think you're seeing things because you want to see things. Makes you feel useful. Makes you feel like you didn't fuck up in Syria. Maya stopped 3 feet from him. Were you just outside my tent? What? Were you? Outside my tent, 30 seconds ago. Torres looked genuinely confused. No, I've been here for 10 minutes. Ask Kim, he just walked past. Maya scanned the area, no one else visible. Who's Kim? Radio operator, Korean kid, 22, quiet as hell. You probably haven't met him yet. Where'd he go? Back to the ops tent, I think. Why? Maya did not answer. She turned and walked toward the operations bunker. Inside, she found a young man hunched over the radio console, headphones on, writing in a logbook. He looked up when she entered. Help you, Sergeant? Private First Class Devin Kim. Smooth face, black hair cut military short, eyes that took her in and filed her away in half a second. Maya studied him carefully. You were just outside? Walking back from Chow? Yeah, why? Did you walk past the eastern sleeping tents? I walked past everything. It's a small base. He smiled slightly. Did I wake you? No. Good. I try to keep quiet. He turned back to his radio. Anything else? Maya watched him for another moment. Something about him felt off, but she could not place it. His voice maybe. The rhythm of it. Like he was performing being casual rather than actually being casual. No, that's all. She left and returned to her tent. Blake was asleep. Maya lay back down, mind racing. Torres at the east wall, Kim walking past the tents. Either one could have stopped outside her tent. Or neither. Or someone else entirely. She pulled out her notebook and added another entry. Day 4. Footsteps outside tent, 2,300. Torres claims he was smoking. Kim claims he was returning from Chow. Neither confirmed. Patterns within patterns. At dawn on day 5, Morrison announced the patrol schedule. 10 Marines, route blue, Southern Valley sweep. Maya's name was not on the list. She found Morrison afterward. Sir, I should be on that patrol. You're on base security, we discussed this. I'm a sniper, I should be providing overwatch. Morrison's expression hardened. You're a sniper who's been reporting ghost contacts and harassing my radio operator at midnight. You're staying on base. Sir, I can be useful. You can be useful by following orders. Dismissed. Maya saluted and left. jaw tight. Webb caught her outside. He's not wrong, you know. You need to dial it back. Dial what back? Doing my job? Seeing conspiracies in every shadow. Webb's voice softened. Look, I get it. Syria messed with your head, but you can't let it control you. Maya met his eyes. What if I'm not controlled by Syria? What if I'm just paying attention? Then prove it. Give me something concrete. Not hair, not rocks, not dog bark patterns. Give me evidence. I'm trying. Try harder. The patrol departed at 800. Maya watched from the eastern tower as they descended into the valley, 10 small figures moving in careful formation. She tracked them through her scope until they disappeared into dead ground behind a ridge. Then she settled in and waited. At 1100, she saw the flash. Metallic glint, 600 meters from the patrol's position, in a tree line that should have been empty. Not glass this time, metal. And it flashed 3 times, paused 5 seconds, flashed twice more. A signal. Maya's heart rate spiked. She keyed her radio. Actual overwatch. Possible enemy signals at grid November Victor 3728. Morrison's voice came back tight. Overwatch, what are you seeing? Metallic flashes. Pattern indicates signaling. 3 long, 2 short. Can you confirm hostile intent? Maya tracked the tree line. The flashes had stopped. Negative, but the pattern is deliberate, not natural. Maintain observation. Do not engage. Roger. She kept her eye to the scope. The patrol continued moving, unaware. The tree line stayed dark. Maya's finger moved to the trigger guard, not on the trigger, just resting there. Come on, she thought. Show yourself. At 11:14 movement, 3 figures rising from the tree line, all carrying weapons, all moving toward an intercept position with the patrol. And one of them carried an RPG. Maya's training kicked in. Range, 620 meters, wind, 4 knots gusting to 6. Target moving left to right. Lead time 0.7 mils. She made the adjustments automatically, muscle memory from 10,000 practice rounds. Her finger found the trigger. Actual overwatch. I have 3 armed hostiles, 1 with RPG, moving to intercept patrol, requesting permission to engage. Overwatch. Do not fire, that's an order. I need positive hostile action. Sir, they're carrying an RPG toward our people. Stand down, Sergeant. That is a direct order. Maya watched through the scope as the RPG gunner dropped into a firing position. He was lining up the patrol, now 400 meters from his location and completely exposed. She had maybe 15 seconds before he fired. Morrison's order rang in her ears. Stand down. Do not engage. But she could see what was about to happen. Could see the math. 10 Marines, 1 rocket, open ground. At least 3 casualties, probably more. She thought about Syria, about watching and not shooting, about 6 body bags and a letter to a family that started with, "We regret to inform you." Her finger tightened on the trigger. Not this time. She fired. The bullet crossed 620 meters in less than a second. It entered the RPG gunner's head, just above the left eye, and exited in a pink mist that the wind took. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The RPG fell unfired. The other 2 Taliban froze, shocked. The patrol team heard the shot and hit the ground, training taking over. Morrison's voice exploded over the radio. Overwatch, who fired? This is Overwatch. Threat neutralized. You fired without authorization. Threat was imminent, sir. He was in firing position. Down in the valley, the patrol team recovered and engaged. 2 sharp bursts of automatic fire. The remaining Taliban went down. Silence fell over the valley. Maya kept her scope on the bodies, watching for movement. None came. After a long minute, Torres' voice came over the radio, shaky but firm. Actual, this is Blue Team, confirming 3 enemy KYA. 1 was armed with RPG-7, armed and ready to fire. Overwatch's shot saved our asses. Morrison did not respond immediately. When he did, his voice was ice. All elements, return to base. Chen, you report to my tent the moment that patrol walks through the gate. Maya lowered her rifle and waited. The patrol returned 90 minutes later. Torres found her first, still in the tower. He climbed up, face serious, and extended his hand. I was wrong about you. Maya looked at his hand, but did not take it. About which part? About the ghosts. You saw them. We didn't. He dropped his hand. That was a hell of a shot. It was 620 meters, standard. In gusting wind, on a moving target with our lives on the line. That's not standard. That's fucking heroic. Maya stood and slung her rifle. It's just math. She climbed down and walked to Morrison's tent. Inside, she found the lieutenant, Webb, and Blake all waiting. Morrison pointed at a chair. Sit. She sat. You violated a direct order. Yes, sir. You fired without authorization. Yes, sir. You could have hit one of our own. No, sir. I had clean line of sight and controlled conditions. Morrison leaned forward. You don't get to make that call, Sergeant. I do. When I say stand down, you stand down. When you say stand down and 10 Marines die, what then, sir? The question hung in the air. Webb shifted uncomfortably. Blake stared at the floor. Morrison's jaw worked. You were right, he said finally. This time. But that doesn't excuse insubordination. I understand, sir. Do you? Morrison stood. Because from where I'm sitting, you're a sniper who sees threats everywhere, reports contacts no one can confirm, and now fires without orders. That's not reliability. That's instability. Maya met his eyes. Sir, with respect, I've been trying to tell you for 4 days that someone is watching this base, probing our defenses, testing our awareness. Today I proved it. Today you proved you can shoot. That was never in question. Morrison crossed his arms. What you haven't proven is that you're not seeing patterns that don't exist. One confirmed contact doesn't validate 4 days of ghost hunting. Webb spoke up. Sir, the intel on those hairs came back. No match in the database. Morrison turned. So? So that means either they're from a local national who somehow got inside our wire, or they're from someone we don't have records for, or they're contamination from before deployment, or transfer from another Marine, or any of a dozen explanations that don't involve invisible infiltrators. Morrison looked back at Maya. I'm confining you to base. No patrols, no tower duty, no external operations. You stay inside the wire until I'm convinced you can follow orders. Sir, that's a mistake. That's my decision. Dismissed. Maya stood, saluted, and left. Outside the tent, the sun was setting behind the mountains, painting everything in shades of blood and shadow. Webb caught up to her halfway to the sleeping tents. That could have gone worse. Could it have? He could have sent you home. He didn't. Maya stopped walking. He doesn't believe me. He believes you can shoot. He just doesn't believe the rest. Because he's not looking. Webb moved in front of her, blocking her path. Then make him look. Give him something he can't ignore. Not hair, not rocks. Real evidence. Maya thought about the signal flashes. The Taliban, who had known exactly where the patrol would be. The timing that was too perfect to be coincidence. Someone told them, she said quietly. What? The Taliban. They knew our patrol route. They knew our timing. That flash pattern was coordination. Someone on this base gave them the information. Webb's expression darkened. That's a serious accusation. It's the only thing that makes sense. Chen, think about what you're saying. You're claiming we have a traitor. I'm claiming we have a leak. Whether it's intentional or not, information is getting out. Webb was quiet for a long moment. If you're right, and I'm not saying you are, but if you're right, who? Maya pulled out her notebook and opened it to her observations. Someone with access to patrol schedules. Someone who moves freely around base. Someone quiet enough to approach my tent without waking anyone. That's half the base. Not half. Ops staff, radio operators, command element. She paused. Or someone pretending to be one of those things. Webb's eyes narrowed. You're talking about Kim. I'm talking about everyone. But yes, him especially. Based on what? The fact that he was walking past your tent? Based on the fact that I've never seen him before 3 days ago, his voice has an accent he's trying to hide, and he was the only person in position to stop outside my tent the night I heard footsteps. He's been here for 6 months, Maya. He's vetted. Then let me see his file. Webb shook his head. I can't do that without Morrison's approval. Then get his approval. Based on what evidence? Based on the fact that 3 Taliban knew exactly where to be today. Based on the fact that someone's been in my tent. Based on the fact that something is wrong and nobody's listening. Her voice had risen. Marines nearby turned to look. Webb put a hand on her arm. Keep your voice down. Maya pulled away. I'm tired of being quiet while everyone pretends everything is fine. It's not fine, and if nobody else is going to figure that out, I will. She walked away before Webb could respond. Back at her tent, she found Blake sitting on her cot, cleaning her carbine again. She looked up when Maya entered. Heard you got restricted to base. News travels fast. Always does. Blake set down her cleaning rod. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing today. Torres is alive because you took that shot. Morrison doesn't agree. Morrison's young. He thinks following rules keeps people safe. You know better. Maya sat on her own cot, rifle across her lap. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you trust everyone on this base? Blake's hands stopped moving. That's a weird question. It's a simple one. Simple and weird aren't mutually exclusive. Blake thought about it. Yeah, I guess. I mean, they're Marines. We trust each other, even the ones you don't know well. Especially them. That's the whole point of the Brotherhood, right? We're all in this together. Blake studied Maya's face. Well, why? You don't trust someone? Maya did not answer immediately. She was thinking about the hairs, the footsteps, the signal flashes, about the way Kim had smiled when she asked if he woke her, about how everything felt wrong in ways she could not articulate. I don't trust assumptions, she said finally. Blake nodded slowly. Syria really did a number on you, huh? Syria taught me that assumptions get people killed. So did following orders, apparently. The words landed harder than Blake probably meant them to. Maya felt the old wound tear open, Syria flooding back. Lieutenant Hale's voice. Take the shot. Her finger on the trigger. The children. The choice. The explosion. The silence after. She stood abruptly. I need air. Outside, the night had fully fallen. The firebase was dark except for the guard towers and a few scattered work lights. Maya walked to the eastern wall and looked out over the valley. Somewhere down there, 3 bodies lay cooling in the dark. 3 men who had tried to kill her people and failed. Because she had not followed orders. Because she had trusted her eyes over someone else's authority. Because in the end, pulling the trigger had been the right call. But it did not feel like victory. It felt like the beginning of something worse. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned to find Webb. Can't leave you alone for 5 minutes, he said. I'm fine. You're really not. He leaned against the wall beside her. You were right today. About the ambush, about the shot. You saved lives. But you're also spiraling. You're seeing enemies everywhere. You're not sleeping. You're isolating. And now you're accusing people of treason based on gut feelings. Not gut feelings, observations. Fine, observations. But observations without proof are just paranoia. Maya turned to face him. What if I get you proof? Then I'll listen. Really listen. But it has to be real, Maya. Not assumptions, not patterns. Evidence that would hold up under scrutiny. And if I find it, then I'll back you. All the way to Morrison and beyond if necessary. Webb's expression was serious. But if you can't find it, you need to let this go. For your own sake. Maya looked back out at the dark valley. I can't let it go. Why not? Because someone touched my rifle while I slept. And that means someone got close enough to kill me and chose not to. She met his eyes. That's not paranoia. That's a message. They're telling me they can reach me anytime they want. Webb was quiet for a long time. Okay, he said finally. Okay, show me everything you've got. Every note, every observation, every piece of evidence. We'll go through it together. They went back to her tent. Blake was asleep. Maya pulled out her notebook and spread it on her footlocker. Webb sat cross-legged on the floor and read through every entry. Day 1, dogs bark 2200 to 2215, normal pattern. Day 2, dogs silent 2200 to 247, reflection at 247, bearing 274, range 800 meters. Day 3, dogs bark 2200 to 22N, silent 2210 to 2330. Stone moved outside wire, fingerprint visible. Day 4, footsteps outside tent at 2300, hair found on rifle, second occurrence. Day 5, signal flashes 1100 3-2 pattern, Taliban ambush followed. Webb studied the entries, then looked up. You've been mapping their behavior. Yes? Based on dog reactions and visual cues? Yes. And you think someone inside is coordinating with them? I think someone inside is giving them information, whether they know they're doing it or not. Webb tapped the notebook. This is good work. Really good. But it's circumstantial. Morrison will say the dogs are just dogs. The reflection could be anything. The stone could be weather. The hair could be contamination. What about the signal flashes? What about the perfect timing of that ambush? Could be coincidence. Could be Taliban doing their own surveillance. Could be a lot of things. Maya felt frustration building. So what would convince him? Catching someone in the act. Proof of communication. Something undeniable. And how do I get that when I'm confined to base? Webb stood. You watch, you document, and you wait for them to make a mistake. He paused at the tent entrance. And Maya, get some actual sleep. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. After he left, Maya lay down on her cot. She closed her eyes, tried to follow orders, tried to let her body rest. At 0147, her eyes snapped open. The tent was silent. Blake slept across from her, breathing even and deep. But Maya's rifle bolt was closed. She had left it open. She always left it open. She sat up slowly, reaching for her headlamp. As her hand found the rifle, she felt something else. Another hair, longer this time, caught between the stock and the receiver. She pulled it free and held it up to the red light. Black, 5 inches, human. Someone had been in her tent again. While Blake slept. Without making a sound, Maya's heart hammered in her chest. She looked at Blake, still sleeping. Looked at the tent entrance, still tied shut from the inside. Someone had come in, done their work, and left. Without waking anyone. Impossible. Unless you were trained for it. Unless you had done it before. Maya pulled out a third plastic bag and sealed the hair inside. Then she dressed, grabbed her rifle, and slipped outside. The firebase was dead quiet. 0 hours. Darkest part of the night. She moved along the tent line, checking each position, everyone accounted for, everyone sleeping, except near the operations bunker, where a single light burned. Maya approached carefully. Through the window, she saw Kim at the radio console, headphones on, writing in his logbook. Same as every night. But tonight, as she watched, he pulled off the headphones and spoke into the radio handset. His lips moved, but she could not hear the words. Then he hung up, wrote something in the logbook, and went back to monitoring. Standard radio watch, or something else. Maya stayed in the shadows and waited. At 02:30, Kim stood, stretched, and left the bunker. She followed him at a distance. He walked past the sleeping tents, moving quiet, then stopped. Right outside her tent. He stood there for 30 seconds, then continued on toward his own bunk. Maya's blood went cold. She waited until he disappeared into his tent, then went back to the operations bunker. The radio logbook sat on the desk, open to tonight's entries. She flipped through the pages. Standard traffic, weather reports, sit-rep updates. Nothing unusual. Then she noticed something. The handwriting changed halfway through. Same entries, same information, but different pen pressure, different letter formation. 2 different people had written in this log tonight, but only Kim had been on watch. Maya photographed these pages with her phone, then left before anyone saw her. Back in her tent, she added the evidence to her collection. 3 hairs, photos of inconsistent handwriting, documentation of Kim stopping outside her tent. Still circumstantial, still not enough, but it was building. She lay back down and closed her eyes. This time, she did not try to sleep. She just waited and listened. At 400, she heard it, a sound so faint it was almost nothing. Metal on metal, coming from outside the wire. She was up in seconds, rifle in hand, moving to the tent entrance. She tied the flap open and stepped outside. The eastern guard tower was occupied. Morrison had put Blake up there tonight. Maya watched as Blake scanned the valley, slow and methodical. Then Blake stopped, raised her hand, and flashed her light 3 times, paused, flashed it twice. The same pattern Maya had seen before the ambush. Blake lowered her hand and went back to scanning, like nothing had happened. Maya's world tilted. Not Kim, Blake, her bunkmate. The woman who had been nothing but friendly and supportive for 5 days. Blake was the leak. Maya backed into the tent slowly, mind racing. She needed proof, real proof. But how do you prove someone flashed a light? How do you prove coordination without catching them in communication? She pulled out her phone and set it to video mode, propped it in the tent window, aimed at the guard tower. Then she waited. 20 minutes later, Blake did it again. 3 long flashes, 2 short. Maya's phone captured it all. She had her proof. She grabbed the phone and ran to Webb's tent. Found him awake, sitting on his cot, cleaning his sidearm. Chen, it's 0430. What the hell? It's Blake. Webb blinked. What? Blake is the leak. I have video. She's signaling from the guard tower. Webb stood immediately. Show me. Maya played the video. The screen was dark, but the light flashes were clear. 3. Pause. 2. Webb's face went hard. That's the same pattern. Same as the ambush. Same as the reflection I saw on day 2. It's a signal. Why would she? Webb trailed off thinking, we need to take this to Morrison. Now. They found Morrison asleep. He woke angry, but the anger died when he saw the video. He watched it 3 times, silent. Chen, you're sure this is Blake? Yes, sir. She's on tower watch. I can prove it by checking the duty roster. Morrison grabbed his radio. All elements, this is actual. I need Corporal Torres and Private Kim to the ops tent immediately. Webb, go get Blake. Tell her nothing. Webb left. Torres and Kim arrived within minutes, both confused. Morrison pointed at chairs. Sit. They sat. Maya stood against the wall, rifle slung. Morrison played the video on his laptop. Anyone recognize this signal pattern? Kim leaned forward. 3-2. That's the same pattern we saw before the ambush. Correct. Morrison looked at Torres. You were on that patrol. You saw it. Yes, sir. metallic flashes from the tree line. Morrison turned to Maya. And you documented seeing this pattern on day 2, correct? Yes, sir. Who was on tower watch that night? Maya pulled out her notebook. I don't have the duty roster documented. Kim spoke up. I can pull it from the logs. He moved to the computer and typed. Day 2, tower watch 2,200 to 0200 was Lance Corporal Blake. Silence fell over the tent. Torres looked sick. You're saying Blake's been signaling Taliban? That's impossible. She's been here for 8 months. She's solid. Morrison's jaw clenched. Webb, where is she? As if on cue, the tent flap opened. Webb entered alone. She's gone. What? Her bunk is empty. Gear's gone. She's not on base. Morrison was on his feet immediately. Lock down the Firebase. Now. Nobody in, nobody out. Torres, get a head count of everyone on base. Kim, check the wire for breaches. Move. They scattered. Maya stood frozen. Blake had run, which meant Blake knew she had been caught, which meant someone had warned her. Morrison looked at Maya. You were right. Yes, sir. About all of it. Yes, sir. Morrison grabbed his rifle. We need to find her before she gets outside our perimeter. If she makes it to Taliban lines, this whole operation is compromised. They mobilize fast. 10 Marines full kit sweeping the Firebase in pairs. Maya took the eastern sector with Webb, and they moved through the darkness, weapons up, clearing each tent and bunker. At the eastern wall, they found the breach. A section of wire had been cut. Recently, the metal still bright. Footprints led away into the rocks. Webb keyed his radio. Actual, we have a breach at the east wall. Fresh tracks leading into the valley. Morrison's voice came back tight. Pursue, detain if possible. Deadly force is authorized. Maya and Webb climbed through the wire and followed the tracks. The terrain was rough, all loose stone and steep drops. The footprints were clear in the dust, boot prints moving fast. They followed for 15 minutes. Then the track stopped, just ended, in the middle of open ground. Webb scanned with his NVGs. Where the hell did she go? Maya studied the ground. The last print was deep, like Blake had stopped hard. But there were no scuff marks, no disturbance indicating she had turned or jumped. She just disappeared. Maya looked up. 20 feet above, a rocky overhang jutted out. She climbed. They found handholds in the rock and pulled themselves up. At the top, more footprints, leading to a crack in the cliff face. A cave. Webb pulled his sidearm. Maya brought her rifle up. They moved into the opening, slow and careful. The cave was shallow, maybe 30 feet deep. At the back, huddled against the stone, was Blake. She looked up when they entered. Her face was streaked with tears. I'm sorry. Maya kept her rifle trained. Stand up slowly. Blake stood, hands shaking. You don't understand. They have my sister. Who has your sister? Taliban, in Kabul. She's a contractor. They took her 6 months ago. Said they'd kill her if I didn't help. Webb moved closer. So you've been feeding them information. Just patrol routes, timing, nothing critical. Blake's voice broke. I thought I could do it without anyone getting hurt. 3 Taliban tried to kill our patrol today. I didn't know they'd do that. I swear, I thought they just wanted to avoid contact, not start fights. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. Blake was compromised. Had been for 6 months. Every patrol, every operation, every piece of intelligence had potentially been leaked. How do you communicate with them? Morrison's voice came from behind. He had climbed up with Torres and Kim. Blake pointed to her phone. Encrypted app. I send them route info. They send me proof my sister's still alive. Morrison held out his hand. Give it to me. Blake handed over the phone. Morrison scrolled through it, face darkening with each message. You endangered 41 lives for 6 months. I endangered one to save one. Blake looked at Maya. You of all people should understand that. Syria, the children. You made a choice. Maya's finger tightened on the rifle. I made a choice that cost me everything. You made a choice that could have cost everyone. But it didn't, because you saw the ambush. You took the shot. Blake's tears came harder. I never wanted anyone to die. I just wanted my sister back. Morrison lowered the phone. You're under arrest for espionage and treason. Torres, cuff her. Torres moved forward with zip ties. Blake did not resist. As he secured her hands, she looked at Maya one more time. I'm sorry. For everything. For the hair on your rifle. For the footsteps. I was trying to scare you off, make you stop looking so close. It didn't work. I know. Blake smiled sadly. You don't stop, do you? No matter what. No. Torres led Blake out of the cave. Morrison turned to Maya. Sergeant Chen, you have my apology for not listening, for doubting you. You were right about everything. Maya lowered her rifle. Sir, there's still a problem. What? Blake said she was trying to scare me, but the signal flashes started before I arrived, and someone wrote in Kim's logbook tonight with different handwriting. Morrison's expression went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying Blake might not be working alone. They returned to base as dawn broke. Blake was locked in a makeshift cell. Morrison called an emergency formation. All 40 Marines assembled in the central area. Morrison stood before them. Last night, Lance Corporal Blake was arrested for espionage. She has confessed to providing intelligence to Taliban forces for the last 6 months. Shocked murmurs ran through the formation. Morrison raised his hand for silence. She claims she was acting alone, but we have reason to believe there may be additional compromised personnel on this base. He paused. Effective immediately, we are implementing security protocols. No one leaves the wire without my personal authorization. All communications are monitored. Anyone found in violation will be detained. The formation broke. Marines scattered, talking in low, urgent voices. Maya felt their eyes on her. Some grateful, some suspicious. Webb found her. You think there's really someone else? The handwriting in the radio log didn't match Kim's hand. I checked his previous entries. Could be Blake. She had access to the ops tent. Could be, or could be someone we haven't identified yet. Webb rubbed his face. This is a nightmare. It's about to get worse. Why? Maya pointed to the valley. Because whoever Blake was coordinating with knows she's been caught, which means they know their operation is compromised, which means they'll either go dark or they'll attack before we can shore up our defenses. When? Maya thought about the pattern, the slow probe, the careful coordination, the patience. Tonight, she said, they'll hit us tonight. Webb looked at the valley, then back at her. You sure? No, but I'd rather be ready and wrong than unprepared and right. Morrison agreed. He put the Firebase on high alert. Double watch, weapons loaded, everyone in full kit. The day crawled past, tension building with each hour. At 2100, Maya climbed to the eastern tower. Her tower, her rifle, her watch. The sun dropped behind the mountains. Darkness fell. The dogs started barking at 2200. Then at 2214, they went silent. Maya's heart rate stayed steady. She scanned the valley floor through her scope. Empty, dark, quiet, too quiet. At 2347, she heard it. Faint, metal on metal, coming from the north. She swung her scope, movement, low and fast, multiple contacts. Taliban, 20 plus. Moving on the Firebase. Maya keyed her radio. Actual overwatch. I have eyes on multiple hostiles, north approach, moving fast. Morrison's voice came back instantly. All elements, defensive positions. This is not a drill. The Firebase erupted into controlled chaos. Marines running to posts, weapons charging, lights going red. Maya tracked the lead elements through her scope. 800 meters, 700, 600. They were coming fast. Too fast, like they knew exactly where to go. Because Blake had told them. Maya picked her first target. Lead man, moving center. She calculated wind, distance, elevation. Breathed out, squeezed. The rifle bucked. The man dropped. The Taliban scattered but kept coming. Maya worked the bolt. Found target 2. Fired. 3. Fired. 4. Each shot precise. Each shot final. Below her, the perimeter erupted in defensive fire. Tracer rounds lit the night. RPGs screamed overhead. The Firebase shook with impacts. Maya stayed calm. Target 5. Fire. 6. Fire. 7. Her world narrowed to the scope, the trigger, the breath between shots. The Taliban got within 200 meters before their advance broke. Too many casualties. Too much accurate fire. They retreated into the darkness, dragging their wounded. Maya tracked them until they disappeared, then lowered her rifle. Silence fell over the valley. Morrison's voice on the radio. All elements, sit rep. One by one, the responses came back. 3 Marines wounded, none critical. 0 KIA. 18 Taliban confirmed down. Victory. Maya climbed down from the tower. Her hands were steady, her breathing controlled. But inside, she felt something crack. She had killed again. After 8 months of refusing. After Syria. After swearing she would never pull the trigger on another human being. She had killed 7 men tonight, and it had been easy. Webb found her sitting against the tower base, rifle across her knees. Hell of a shooting. Yeah. You okay? Maya looked at her hands. No shake, no tremor. I don't know. Webb sat beside her. You saved us, again. I killed them. You protected your own. That's different than Syria. Is it? Yes, Webb's voice was firm. In Syria, you had a choice between innocence and mission. Tonight, you had a choice between enemies and friends. That's not the same thing. Maya wanted to believe him, but all she could see was the scope picture. 7 faces, 7 triggers pulled, 7 bodies cooling in the dark. I thought I was done killing people. You thought wrong. Webb stood and offered his hand. Come on, Morrison wants to debrief. The debrief lasted an hour. Maya reported her observations, her shots, her assessment. Morrison listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded. Good work, Sergeant. Get some rest. Rest. Like that was possible. Maya went back to her tent. It felt empty without Blake. She lay on her cot and stared at the ceiling. At 400, she finally closed her eyes and saw Syria again, the rooftop, the scope, the children. But this time when she pulled the trigger, it was not the HVT who fell. It was Lieutenant Hale. She woke with a gab, covered in sweat. Her rifle was in her hands before she remembered where she was. Firebase Olympus, Afghanistan, day 6. She was still alive, but something inside her had died tonight. The part that believed killing could ever be anything but killing, no matter how justified. She set the rifle down and walked outside. The sky was just starting to lighten, purple fading to gray. She climbed back to the eastern tower and looked out over the valley. Somewhere down there, 7 families would wake up to discover their sons, brothers, fathers were not coming home. Because of her, she thought about Blake locked in a cell, who had tried to save 1 person and endangered 41. She thought about Syria, where she had tried to save 2 people and lost 6. She thought about the impossible math of war, where every choice had a cost and the bill always came due. You don't sleep, do you? Maya turned. Morrison stood at the top of the ladder. No, sir. He moved to stand beside her. Neither do I. Not really. Too many ghosts. How do you deal with them? I don't. I just try to make sure the living outnumber the dead. Morrison looked at her. You did good work this week, Chen. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You were following procedure, sir. Procedure isn't always right. You taught me that. He paused. I'm recommending you for commendation. For the save on the patrol and the defense last night. Please don't, sir. Why not? Because I don't want a medal for killing people, even when they needed killing. Morrison nodded slowly. Understood, but the recommendation stands. What you do with it is up to you. He left her alone, Berg. Maya watched the sun rise over the mountains, painting the valley in shades of gold and red. Beautiful and terrible, like everything in war. Behind her, footsteps on the ladder, she turned expecting Webb. It was Kim. He climbed to the top, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He offered her one. Thought you might need this. Maya did not take it. What do you want, Kim? To say thank you for seeing what nobody else did, for saving us. I was doing my job. You were doing more than that. Kim set both cups on the tower rail. You were watching when everyone else was sleeping. That's not a job. That's a calling. Maya studied his face, looking for something, anything that proved her earlier suspicion. The radio log. Last night, someone else wrote in it besides you. Kim's expression did not change. Yeah, Torres took over for my break, around 0200. I noted it in the remarks. Torres has different handwriting. Most people do. It was a reasonable explanation. Simple. Logical. But Maya's instincts still screamed that something was wrong. Why did you stop outside my tent that night? Kim tilted his head. I didn't stop. I walked past. Torres told you that. He said you walked past, not that you didn't stop. Chen, I didn't stop outside your tent. I don't know what you think you heard, but it wasn't me. Kim's voice stayed calm, almost too calm. I get it. After what happened with Blake, you're suspicious of everyone, but I'm not the enemy. Maya wanted to believe him, but belief required trust, and trust was a luxury she could not afford. Okay. Kim picked up both coffees and handed her one again. Please, I promise it's not poisoned. Maya took it this time. The warmth felt good in her hands. She sipped. Standard marine coffee. Burnt and bitter and perfect. Thanks. Anytime. Kim looked out over the valley. Hell of a night. Yeah. Think they'll come back? Eventually, they always do. Kim nodded. And you'll be here, watching. Someone has to. Yeah. Kim turned to leave, then stopped. Chen, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're the one watching. Makes me feel safer. He climbed down. Maya watched him go, coffee cup warm against her palms. She wanted to trust him, wanted to believe that Blake had been the only threat. But her instincts said otherwise. And her instincts had kept her alive this long. She poured out the coffee and watched it splash on the rocks below. Then she picked up her rifle and went back to watching. Because that's what she did. That's who she was. The girl who wouldn't sleep. The watcher on Firebase Olympus. And somewhere in the valley below, in the growing light of dawn, something moved. Just a shadow, just a flicker. But Maya saw it. She always did. The sun climbed higher but brought no warmth. Maya Chen sat in the eastern tower, rifle across her lap, watching shadows move across the valley floor. 18 Taliban bodies had been dragged away during the night. The rocks where they fell were stained dark. From this distance, the stains looked like oil. Up close, they would smell like copper and waste. She had been watching for 6 hours straight. No relief, no break, just the scope and the valley and the weight of what she had done settling into her bones like cold water. Below, Firebase Olympus was waking up, generators coughing to life, Marines stumbling toward the chow tent with sleep still in their eyes. The morning routine pretending that last night had been just another night. But it had not been. Everyone knew it. The way they moved, too careful. The way they did not quite meet each other's eyes. The way they checked their weapons twice instead of once. Fear had a smell. It lived in the spaces between words. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb climbed the tower ladder, boots heavy on metal rungs. He reached the top, breathing hard, carrying 2 fresh cups of coffee. He set one beside Maya without asking if she wanted it. "You been up here all night?" "Yes." "Morrison know?" "He's the one who told me to stay." Webb settled against the tower rail, big frame creaking the metal. He didn't mean for 12 hours straight. He didn't say how long. "Chen." Webb's voice carried that edge of concern that always made her uncomfortable. "You can't hold a position forever. Eventually your eyes stop working right. You start seeing things that aren't there." Maya thought about the shadow she had seen at dawn, the flicker of movement that disappeared when she blinked. "Maybe I already am. That's what worries me." "Good. Someone should be worried." She lifted the scope and scanned the far ridge. Empty, like it had been empty for 6 hours. "Blake's been in interrogation for 10 hours. What's she saying?" Webb pulled out a small notebook. Everything. Route schedules for the last 6 months, contact protocols, dead drop locations. She's cooperating fully. Because she thinks we'll help her sister. Because we will help her sister. Morrison already contacted Kabul. They're working it. Maya lowered the scope. "And the other thing?" "What other thing?" "The thing you're not telling me." Webb was quiet for a moment. "She says she was working alone, no other compromised personnel on base." "You believe her?" "Intel believes her. They've been through her phone. All communications traced back to a single Taliban cell. No evidence of additional contacts." "What about the handwriting and the radio log?" "Torres, like Kim said, we confirmed it." Maya felt something tight in her chest. Relief, maybe, or disappointment. She had been so sure, so certain that the threat was bigger than Blake, that there was something else lurking in the shadows. "So it's over. The leak is contained. Taliban knows we know. They'll probably go quiet for a while." Webb paused. "You did good, Chen. Really good. You saw what nobody else saw." "I saw because I was looking. Most people don't look that hard. Most people can sleep at night." Webb studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the hollow places in her cheeks, the way her hands stayed too still on the rifle, like if she let them move, they might shake. "When's the last time you ate?" "I had coffee." "Coffee's not food. It's calories." "Jesus Christ." Webb stood. "Come on, you're going to eat breakfast, and then you're going to sleep for 6 hours minimum." "That's not a request." "I need to maintain Overwatch." "I'll take Overwatch. You need to maintain yourself." He extended his hand. "Let's go, Sergeant. On your feet." Maya looked at his hand, looked at the valley. Something in her wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was fine, that she could keep going, that someone needed to watch. But her body was making decisions her mind could not override. She took his hand and let him pull her up. Her legs wobbled. She had been sitting too long. They climbed down together. At the bottom, Torres was waiting. He had a bandage on his left arm from a shrapnel graze during the firefight. He looked at Maya like she was something he had not quite figured out yet. "Sergeant, hell of a night." "Yeah. I counted your shots. 7 targets, 7 kills, no misses." Torres shook his head. "I've been in country 2 years. Never seen shooting like that." Maya did not know what to say to that. Thank you felt wrong. So did acknowledgement. So she just nodded and kept walking. The chow tent smelled like powdered eggs and burnt toast. Maya filled a tray with food she did not want and sat in her usual corner. Webb sat across from her and watched her push eggs around with a fork. "Eat." "I'm eating." "You're moving food. That's different." Maya forced herself to take a bite. It tasted like cardboard. She chewed mechanically and swallowed. Webb nodded approval and started on his own meal. Across the tent, Private First Class Devin Kim sat alone, headphones on, eating with his right hand while his left scrolled through a tablet. Maya watched him, looking for something, anything that confirmed her earlier suspicion. But he just looked like a young Marine eating breakfast. Nothing sinister, nothing hidden. Maybe she really was seeing threats that were not there. "You still think Kim's dirty?" Webb asked quietly. "I don't know what I think anymore." "That's probably the most honest thing you've said all week." Webb leaned forward. "Look, I get it. Blake fooled all of us for 6 months. That makes everyone a suspect, but you can't live like that. You'll drive yourself crazy." "Maybe I'm already there." "No, crazy doesn't make 700-meter headshots in the dark. Crazy doesn't map enemy patterns from dog barks." Webb's expression softened. "You're not crazy, Maya. You're just tired, and tired makes mistakes. I can't afford mistakes. Nobody can. But you especially can't afford to collapse from exhaustion and miss the real threat because you were too busy chasing ghosts." Maya set down her fork. "What if the ghosts are real? Then they'll still be real after you sleep." She wanted to argue, wanted to explain that sleep meant dreams, and dreams meant Syria, and Syria meant watching Lieutenant Hale die over and over in slow motion while she did nothing. But Webb was right. She was running on empty, and empty vessels made poor sentries. "6 hours," she said. "6 hours minimum. I'll have someone wake you if anything happens." Maya stood, took her tray to the wash station, and walked back to her tent. It still felt wrong without Blake. The empty cot across from hers was a reminder that trust was just another word for vulnerability. She lay down fully clothed, rifle beside her, and closed her eyes. Sleep came hard and fast, dragging her down into darkness. She dreamed of rooftops and children, and the moment before everything went wrong. The sound of an explosion jerked her awake. Maya's hand found her rifle before her eyes fully opened. She was on her feet, moving toward the tent entrance, hard hammering. Outside, Marines were running, not panicked, organized, moving toward the southern wall with weapons ready. Maya grabbed a passing corporal. "What happened?" "Mortar. Landed outside the wire, no casualties." She released him and ran toward the operations bunker. Morrison was inside, bent over a map table, radio handset pressed to his ear. He saw her enter and waved her over. "Chen, good, you're up. We have activity." "Where?" He pointed to the map. "Southern Ridge. 3 mortar impacts in the last 10 minutes. All landing outside effective range. They're not trying to hit us. They're ranging." "That's what I think too." Morrison's jaw was tight. "They're figuring out our position, calculating trajectories, which means a real attack is coming." "When?" "Tonight probably, maybe sooner." He looked at her. "I need you in that eastern tower. Full overwatch. If they try another ground assault, I want you tearing them apart before they get within 500 meters. "Yes, sir." "And Chen?" Morrison paused. "Get some food in you. You look like hell." Maya left and grabbed an MRE from the supply tent. She ate it cold while walking back to the tower. Beef stew that tasted like salt and regret. But it was calories, and calories meant energy, and energy meant steady hands. At the tower, she relieved the Marine on watch and settled into position. The valley spread below, bathed in afternoon light that turned everything gold and false. Beautiful and deadly in equal measure. She scanned methodically. Ridgeline, tree line, boulder fields, dead zones, everything exactly as it should be. Except for the dust. There was dust rising from the valley floor. Not much, just a thin haze about 2 kilometers out. Like something heavy had passed through recently. Maya tracked the dust cloud through her scope. It was moving, slowly, toward the firebase. She keyed her radio. "Actual overwatch. I have dust signature, bearing 185, range 2,000 meters, moving toward our position." Morrison's voice came back sharp. "Visibility?" "Negative. Too much terrain between us. But the dust pattern suggests heavy vehicles." "Copy. All elements stand to. Possible vehicle approach from the south." Maya kept her scope on the dust. It moved steadily, not hurrying, not slowing. Confident. Like whoever was driving knew exactly where they were going. At 1,500 meters, the vehicle cleared the ridgeline and came into view. Not Taliban, a Humvee. American. Flying a small flag from the antenna. Maya's finger relaxed on the trigger guard. Actual overwatch. Confirmed friendly vehicle. Humvee, single unit, approaching from the south. "Copy. That's our resupply. 2 days early, but welcome." The Humvee pulled up to the southern gate. 4 Marines climbed out, all looking road-worn and tired. The driver was a staff sergeant Maya did not recognize. He reported to Morrison while his team started unloading supplies. Maya watched from the tower. Standard resupply, food, water, ammunition, mail, nothing unusual, except the timing. Resupply was scheduled for 2 days from now. Early arrival meant either the schedule had changed or someone had pushed the convoy forward, or someone had requested it early. Maya climbed down from the tower and found Webb supervising the unload. Did Morrison request early resupply? Webb shook his head. Not that I know of. Why? Just seems odd, timing. Maybe they had extra capacity and decided to push it through. Happens sometimes. Webb grabbed a case of MREs. Help me with this? They carried supplies to the storage tent. Maya kept watching the resupply team. 4 Marines, all with proper patches, proper gear, proper everything. But one of them kept glancing toward the operations bunker. Not casual glances, focused looks, like he was tracking something. Maya set down the case she was carrying. Who's that? Webb followed her gaze. Which one? The corporal. Tall, dark hair, keeps looking at the ops tent. I don't know. Let me check the manifest. Webb pulled out his tablet and scrolled through. Corporal James Rivera, assigned to 3rd Battalion, attached to supply convoy for this run. He regular resupply crew? Doesn't say why. No reason. But Maya did not look away from Rivera. There was something about the way he moved. Too aware. Like he was simultaneously part of the team and apart from it. The resupply team finished unloading and prepared to depart. Rivera climbed into the Humvee last, and just before he did, he looked directly at Maya. Their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. Then he smiled, got in the vehicle. The Humvee rolled out through the southern gate and disappeared back into the valley. Maya stood very still. Webb noticed. You okay? That look. What look? Rivera. He looked at me like he knew me. Maybe he's seen your file. You're kind of famous after Syria. Famous isn't the right word. Infamous, then. Webb touched her shoulder. Chen, seriously, you need to ease up. Not everyone's a threat. But Maya kept staring at the dust trail from the departed Humvee. That smile, that look, it had not been recognition. It had been something else. Acknowledgement, like he knew exactly who she was and what she had been doing. She walked back to the operations bunker and found Morrison filing paperwork. Sir, the resupply convoy, was that scheduled? Morrison looked up. What? The convoy that just left. Was it on the schedule? Yeah, it came early. Hire pushed it forward because of the Taliban activity. Figured we might need extra ammunition sooner rather than later. He went back to his paperwork. We are. Just confirming, Maya left before he could ask more questions. Outside, the Firebase had returned to normal operations. Marines going about their duties. No alarms, no tension. But her instincts were screaming. She went to the communications tent and found Kim at his station, managing radio traffic. He looked up when she entered. Sergeant Chen, need something? The resupply convoy. Did you log their arrival? Of course. Standard procedure. He pulled up the log on his screen. Arrived 1342, departed 1407, 4 personnel, supply manifest filed, all correct. Can I see the manifest? Kim turned the screen toward her. Standard list. Food, water, ammunition, medical supplies, mail, everything accounted for. Except one line item at the bottom. Equipment maintenance parts, miscellaneous, quantity 12. What's miscellaneous equipment? Kim shrugged. Could be anything. Radio parts, vehicle components, whatever maintenance needs. It's a catch-all category. Who signed for it? Torres, he's the supply NCO. Maya found Torres at the armory, checking ammunition counts. He looked up when she approached. Chen, what's up? The resupply. You signed for equipment parts? Yeah, a bunch of radio components and some vehicle stuff. Why? Can I see them? Torres gestured to a corner where several boxes sat unopened. Knock yourself out. I haven't inventoried them yet. Maya opened the first box. Radio antennas, coaxial cable, connector assemblies, all standard. She opened the second box. Vehicle alternator, spark plugs, fan belt, normal. The third box was heavier. She cut the seal and lifted the lid. Inside were 12 small electronic devices, each about the size of a deck of cards. Black plastic cases with a small LED and a short antenna. Maya picked one up. No markings, no labels, just smooth plastic and the antenna. Torres, what are these? He came over and looked. No idea, probably some new comm gear or something. I'll check with Morrison. But Maya's hands were already moving. She had seen devices like this before. In Syria, in Iraq, in every theater where intelligence collection was a priority. These were not communication equipment. They were transmitters, beacons. The kind you hide in enemy territory to mark targets for airstrikes or to track movement patterns, or to send signals out. She set the device down carefully and turned to Torres. Where exactly are these supposed to go? Manifest says they're for perimeter security enhancement. Morrison's supposed to get install instructions from higher. Has he gotten them yet? Not that I know of. Maya picked up the box and carried it to the operations bunker. Morrison was on the radio when she entered. She waited until he finished, then set the box on his desk. Sir, did you request these? Morrison looked at the devices, frowned. What are they? That's what I'm asking you. He picked one up, turned it over. Some kind of sensor. The manifest said perimeter security equipment. Sir, these are transmitters. They send signals out, not in. Morrison's expression changed. You sure? I've seen them before. In Syria, CIA used them for target designation. Why the hell would CIA send target beacons to a firebase? Morrison set the device down like it had burned him. Chen, are you absolutely certain about this? Not 100%, but close enough to be concerned. Morrison grabbed his radio. This is actual. I need the resupply convoy recalled immediately. Tell them to return to Olympus for equipment verification. He waited. The response came back 30 seconds later. Actual convoy reports their radios experiencing interference. Cannot establish clear comms. Morrison's face went hard. Send a runner vehicle. I want that convoy back here now. But Maya already knew it was too late. The convoy was gone. Rivera was gone. And whatever those devices were meant to do, the plan was already in motion. Sir, we need to assume compromise. Compromise of what? Everything. If those devices are what I think they are, someone just delivered them directly into our firebase, which means someone requested them, which means someone here is coordinating with the enemy. Morrison stared at the devices. Blake swore she was working alone. Blake thought she was working alone, but what if she was just one piece? What if whoever's running this operation compartmentalized it so no one person knew the full picture? Morrison trailed off. Then his training kicked in. Okay, worst case scenario, we have unknown compromised personnel and unknown hostile equipment on base. What's our move? Maya thought fast. Lock down all communications. No radio traffic except emergency channels. Secure these devices somewhere they can't transmit. Do a full sweep of the base for anything else that came in with that resupply. And the personnel? Everyone's a suspect until we know otherwise. Morrison nodded once, sharp. Do it, I'll brief Webb. You coordinate the sweep. Maya grabbed the box and carried it to the farthest corner of the firebase, away from any critical infrastructure. She placed it inside a metal storage container and sealed it shut. Not perfect shielding, but better than nothing. Then she started the sweep. Every tent, every vehicle, every supply crate that had come in with the convoy. She moved fast and thorough, with 2 Marines accompanying her as witnesses. They found nothing else unusual, just standard supplies and equipment. But that did not mean nothing was there. It just meant nothing was obvious. By the time the sweep finished, the sun was dropping toward the western peaks. Maya reported to Morrison. Nothing else found, sir, but I recommend we treat this as an active infiltration. Agreed. Morrison looked exhausted, the kind of tired that came from too many problems and not enough answers. The runner vehicle is still trying to locate the convoy. So far, no luck. They won't find them. You sound certain. I am. If this is a planned operation, that convoy is already off the main supply route. They'll ditch the Humvee, scatter, and disappear into the local population. Morrison rubbed his face. So we have possible enemy equipment on base, possible compromised personnel, and a missing resupply convoy. Anything else going wrong today? As if in answer, the Firebase alarm started blaring. Morrison grabbed his radio. Sit rep. Webb's voice came back, tight with controlled urgency. Actual, we have movement on the southern ridge. Multiple contacts, infantry at least 30. They're digging in firing positions. Taliban? Confirmed. And they're not trying to hide. They want us to see them. Maya and Morrison ran to the southern wall. Through binoculars, the enemy positions were clear. Taliban fighters moving with professional efficiency, setting up machine guns and mortars. Not attacking, just establishing presence. A demonstration of force. Morrison lowered his binoculars. They're telling us they know we're compromised. They're showing us they're ready to exploit it. Or they're a distraction, Maya said. From what? From whatever those devices are really for. Morrison thought for 3 seconds, then made his decision. All personnel, full defensive positions. I want eyes on every approach. Anyone sees anything unusual, anything at all, you report it immediately. The firebase shifted into high alert. Marines moving to fighting positions. Weapons loaded. Night vision prepped. The sun dropped below the horizon and darkness fell like a curtain. Maya climbed to the eastern tower. Her position. From here she could see the entire valley spread below, now visible only through the green glow of night vision. She scanned methodically. The Taliban positions on the southern ridge were lit up like Christmas trees, thermal signatures blooming bright. They were not trying to hide. They wanted to be seen, which meant the real threat was somewhere else. Maya expanded her scan. Northern ridge, clear. Western slope, clear. Eastern valley floor, clear. Then she saw it. Movement, low and fast, not on the ridges, down in the valley, moving through the boulder field with tactical precision. She counted. 6 figures, all carrying weapons, all moving directly toward the Firebase eastern wall. Actual overwatch. I have 6 hostiles approaching from the east, range 800 meters, using boulder field for concealment. Morrison's voice came back. Copy. Do you have shots? Maya tracked the lead figure through her scope. He moved smart, using terrain, staying low. But she had the high ground in thermal. Affirmative, I have shots. Weapons free, take them. Maya settled into her shooting position. Controlled breathing, steady hands. The first target moved into a gap between boulders. 700 meters, wind 3 knots, elevation angle 15 degrees down. She fired. The figure dropped. The others scattered, diving for cover. Maya worked the bolt, found target 2. He was running. She led him by half a body length. Fired. He went down hard. The remaining 4 abandoned stealth and started sprinting toward the wall. Bad decision. Made them easier to see. Target 3, fire, down. Target 4, fire, down. Target 5, fire, down. The last one made it to the wall and pressed flat against it, out of her sight line. Maya tracked the position and waited. He would have to move eventually. Then she heard the explosion. Not loud, muffled, coming from inside the firebase. Maya spun her scope toward the sound. The equipment storage container where she had placed the transmitter devices was smoking. The door had been blown off. Or had. Actual, we have an explosion at the eastern storage area. Copy, sending a team. Overwatch, that last hostile at the wall. Do you still have eyes? Maya swung back to the wall position. The figure was gone. Just empty ground and shadows. He had breached. Negative, he's inside the wire. Morrison's voice stayed calm, but she could hear the tension underneath. All elements. We have a confirmed hostile inside the perimeter. Locked down and search. He's armed and dangerous. Marines scattered to search patterns. Maya climbed down from the tower and joined the hunt. She moved through the firebase with her rifle up, checking every shadow, every corner, every space large enough to hide a man. The firebase was not large. 41 Marines, 1 hostile. Should be easy to find. But the hostile knew they were looking, and he was moving like someone trained to evade. Maya checked the sleeping tents. Empty. The supply tents. Clear. The vehicle depot. Nothing. Then she heard the gunfire. 2 shots. Pistol caliber. Coming from the operations bunker. She sprinted toward the sound. Webb was already there, weapon raised, moving through the door. Maya followed him in. The bunker was dark except for emergency lights. Papers scattered across the floor. 1 desk overturned, and in the corner Morrison sat against the wall, hand pressed to his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. Contact ran through here, Morrison said through gritted teeth. Took shots at me, missed clean, hit my shoulder. He went deeper into the bunker. Webb keyed his radio. Corpsman to the ops bunker, officer down. Maya moved past Morrison, rifle up, clearing corners. The bunker had 3 rooms, main operations, communications, and storage. She cleared ops. Clear, moved to communications. Kim was there, back against the wall, tablet clutched to his chest. He looked terrified. He came through, Kim said, right past me. Didn't stop, just kept going. Where? Kim pointed to the storage room door. It was ajar. Maya approached carefully, kicked the door open. Dark inside. She swept with her weapon light. Empty. Number. Not empty. There was a hatch in the floor. Storm shelter access. The hatch was open. She looked down into darkness. Her light illuminated a ladder leading down about 15 feet into a concrete room. Standard shelter design. 1 way in, 1 way out. The hostile had trapped himself. Or had he? Maya descended the ladder slowly, rifle leading. At the bottom, the shelter was small. 8 by 8. Concrete walls, bench along one side, and a hole in the back wall. Not a designed feature. A breach. Someone had jackhammered through the concrete, creating an opening about 3 feet wide. It led into darkness. A tunnel. Maya keyed her radio. Actual, I found a tunnel entrance in the storm shelter. The hostile went through. Morrison's voice was strained with pain. A tunnel? That's not on any blueprint. It's new. Recent construction by the look of it. Someone's been digging under the firebase. Webb's voice cut in. How far does it go? Maya shined her light into the tunnel. It angled down and curved out of sight. Professional work. Shored walls, ventilation pipe along the ceiling. Unknown. But this took weeks to build, maybe months. Can you pursue? Maya looked into the darkness. Every instinct said this was a trap. That following someone into an unknown tunnel was how soldiers died. But letting him escape meant he could collapse it behind him, destroy evidence, or worse. I'm going in. Negative, Chen. Wait for backup. By the time backup gets here, he'll be gone. Maya did not wait for permission. She entered the tunnel, weapon light cutting through the dark. The tunnel was tight. She had to crouch. The walls pressed in close. Behind her, she heard Webb cursing and following. Good. Backup whether she wanted it or not. The tunnel curved right, then left, descending steadily. Maya counted her steps. 50, 75, 100. They had to be well outside the firebase perimeter by now. Then the tunnel opened up. Not into another room, into a junction. 3 tunnels branching off in different directions. Professional work. Someone had built an entire network under Firebase Olympus. Jesus Christ, Webb whispered behind her. Maya examined the junction. Fresh footprints in the dust, leading down the center tunnel. She followed them. This tunnel was longer, straighter, and at the end, she saw light. She moved faster. The tunnel terminated in a vertical shaft with a ladder, daylight above. She climbed. At the top, she emerged into a narrow ravine about half a kilometer from the firebase, hidden from view by rock walls on 3 sides. And in the ravine, recent vehicle tracks. Someone had used this as an access point, coming and going for weeks, maybe longer, and the firebase had never known. Webb climbed out beside her. How did we not know this was here? Because we weren't looking. Maya studied the vehicle tracks. These are recent, within the last week. Blake? Blake was compromised for 6 months. If she knew about this, she would have told them everything. The Taliban would have used it for a direct assault. So who built it? Maya thought about Rivera's smile, about the transmitter devices, about the perfect timing of the resupply convoy. Someone who needed access but didn't want Blake to know. Someone running a separate operation. They climbed back down and returned through the tunnel. At the junction, Maya stopped and examined the other 2 branches. The left tunnel led further east. The right tunnel curved back toward the firebase. We need to map this entire network, she said. That's going to take hours. Then we better start. They returned to the firebase and reported to Morrison. He was in the medical tent, corpsman working on his shoulder. The wound was not serious, clean through and through, missing bone and artery. He would heal. But his expression when he heard about the tunnels was darker than any wound. An entire tunnel network, under our base for months. Yes, sir. And we never detected it? The construction would have been slow, careful, done during times when we wouldn't notice. During firefights, resupply, operations, anything that created noise and distraction. Morrison closed his eyes. How many people would it take to build something like that? With the right equipment? 2 or 3 working in shifts. Could be done in a month if they were motivated. And the transmitters from the resupply? I think they were meant to mark the tunnel entrances for coordination. Someone on the outside needed to know exactly where each access point was. For what purpose? Maya hesitated, then decided Morrison needed to hear the full theory, no matter how bad it sounded. Sir, I think someone's planning to assault this firebase from below. The Taliban on the ridge are a distraction. The real attack will come through those tunnels. They can bypass our walls, our defenses, everything. Pop up right in the middle of the base and tear us apart from inside. Morrison absorbed that. When? Tonight? Tomorrow night? Soon? Everything that's happened in the last 48 hours has been preparation. Blake getting caught, the resupply convoy, the equipment, the demonstration on the ridge, it's all building to something. The corpsman finished bandaging Morrison's shoulder. The lieutenant stood, tested his arm, winced but nodded. Okay, new plan. We collapse those tunnels, all of them. Seal the entrances and bury the network. Sir, that might not be possible. We don't have engineers or the right equipment. Then we defend them. Put men at each junction. Turn their asset into our kill box. Morrison grabbed his rifle. Webb, get me a full head count. I want to know exactly who's on this base. Chen, you map those tunnels. Every branch, every junction, every exit. I need to know the terrain. Yes, sir. Maya gathered a four-man team and descended back into the tunnel network. With lights and spray paint, they began mapping. The center tunnel led 800 meters east and terminated at another ravine exit. The left tunnel split into two more branches, both leading to concealed exits in the boulder field. The right tunnel looped back and had 3 access points within the Firebase perimeter. By the time they finished, they had mapped 12 separate tunnel segments and 7 exits. Someone had built an underground highway directly into Firebase Olympus. Maya reported the findings to Morrison. He studied the map she had sketched, face grim. This is bad. Yes, sir. If they attack through these tunnels with any kind of force, we won't be able to hold them. Not if they coordinate it with the Taliban on the ridge. We'll be fighting in 2 directions simultaneously. Morrison set down the map. Then we need to make a choice. We can request immediate evacuation and abandon the firebase, or we can fortify and prepare for the fight. Evacuation would take hours. They'd hit us during extract. Probably, but we'd have air support. Air support won't help in tunnels, sir. Morrison nodded slowly. So we fight. We fight. He called a formation. All 41 Marines assembled in the central area. Morrison climbed onto a supply crate so everyone could see him. Listen up. We have confirmed intelligence that enemy forces have constructed tunnel access points into this firebase. We believe an attack is imminent, possibly tonight. We're not evacuating. We're not running. We're going to turn their tunnels into their graves. He outlined the plan. Marines positioned at each tunnel junction, overlapping fields of fire, grenades pre-staged. The tunnel network would become a trap. Maya listened and tried to feel confident, but something was nagging at her, something she had missed. After the brief, she pulled Webb aside. Something's wrong with this. Everything's wrong with this. No, I mean something specific. The tunnels are too obvious now. We found them too easily. Chen, we only found them because their guy ran into one. That's not easy, that's lucky. Was it though? Think about it. He shot at Morrison in the ops bunker, missed from 10 feet away, then ran into a dead-end tunnel. That's not tactical. That's deliberate. Webb frowned. You think he wanted us to find the tunnels? I think maybe the tunnels are another distraction, something to focus our attention while the real attack comes from somewhere else. Where else is there? We've covered every approach. Maya thought about the devices, the transmitters that Rivera had delivered. They had been in the storage container for hours before the explosion, plenty of time to activate. The devices, we assumed they were for marking the tunnels, but what if they were for something else? Like what? Like targeting. Webb's expression changed. Targeting for what? For an airstrike or artillery or... Maya trailed off as the pieces fell together. Or for guiding and missiles. The Taliban don't have missiles, but they have allies who do. And if those devices are transmitting our exact coordinates, broadcasting our defensive positions, giving real-time intelligence to someone with long-range capability. Webb grabbed his radio. Actual, we need to check those transmitter devices now. They ran to the storage container. The door that had been blown off lay twisted on the ground. Inside, the box of devices sat exactly where Maya had left it. Except now, every single device had a green LED blinking. Active, transmitting. Webb picked one up. The LED blinked steadily, once per second, sending out a signal. How long have these been active? Maya checked her watch. The explosion that blew the container door had happened 90 minutes ago. Since then, maybe longer. Can we shut them down? She examined the device. No switches, no buttons, just the smooth plastic case. She tried prying it open. The case would not budge. Sealed, designed to resist tampering. We need to get these off the base, far away. They gathered the devices and carried them in the box, running toward the southern gate. But before they reached it, the firebase alarm started blaring again. Morrison's voice over the loudspeaker. Incoming, all personnel take cover. Maya looked up. In the darkening sky, she saw them. Small black dots, growing larger. Missiles. Someone had called in an airstrike on Firebase Olympus, and the transmitters had given them the exact coordinates. Maya and Webb dropped the box and sprinted for the nearest bunker. All around them, Marines were diving for cover. The whistling sound of incoming ordnance cut through the air. The first missile hit the operations bunker. The explosion was massive, concrete and metal erupting upward in a fireball. The shockwave knocked Maya off her feet. She hit the ground hard, ears ringing, rolled, got up, kept running. The second missile hit the vehicle depot. More explosions. secondary detonations as fuel tanks caught fire. The third missile hit the southern wall, the wall that faced the Taliban positions on the ridge, the wall that had been holding them back. Through the smoke and fire, Maya saw Taliban fighters pouring through the breach. 30, 40, maybe more. All armed, all moving with purpose. The firebase was under full assault. Maya found her rifle and took position behind a HESCO barrier. Taliban fighters were spreading through the firebase, using the chaos from the missile strikes as cover. She acquired targets, fired, worked the bolt, fired again. Around her, Marines were rallying, fighting back, the initial shock wearing off into disciplined response. But they were outnumbered, outflanked, fighting on multiple fronts. Morrison's voice on the radio hoarse from smoke. All elements, fall back to the eastern sector. Establish defensive perimeter. We hold there or we die there. Maya fell back with the others. The eastern sector was the smallest part of the firebase, but the most defensible. HESCO walls on 3 sides, clear fields of fire. 27 Marines made it to the perimeter. 14 were unaccounted for, dead or wounded or cut off. Morrison set up command in the center. Blood was seeping through his bandage, but he was still functional. Webb organized the defensive positions. Torres distributed ammunition. Maya climbed to the last standing guard tower and took position. From here, she could see the whole battlefield. The firebase was on fire, Taliban fighters moving through smoke. Bodies on the ground, both friendly and enemy. She counted the enemy, at least 50 Taliban inside the wire now, and more coming through the southern breach. The radio crackled, an unfamiliar voice, speaking clear English. American forces on Firebase Olympus. This is your final warning. Surrender now and you will be taken as prisoners. Resist and you will be eliminated. Morrison keyed his radio. This is Firebase Olympus Actual. We don't surrender. Come take us if you can. The voice laughed. Very well, you have chosen death. The Taliban assault intensified. They came at the eastern perimeter from 3 directions simultaneously. Coordinated, professional. Maya engaged targets as fast as she could acquire them. Her rifle became an extension of her will. See threat, fire. Threat down, next threat. But there were too many. The perimeter was shrinking, Marines falling back step by step, ammunition running low. Then Maya saw him. Through the smoke, moving between Taliban fighters with confident ease. Corporal James Rivera, the Marine from the resupply convoy. Except he was not wearing Marine uniform anymore. He wore local clothes, and he was directing Taliban fighters with hand signals. He was not a Marine. He had never been a Marine. He was the mole, the real infiltrator. Not Blake, not Kim, Rivera. And he had delivered the targeting devices directly into their hands. Maya tracked him through her scope. He was giving orders to a Taliban squad, pointing toward the eastern perimeter. Planning the final assault. She had a clear shot. 600 meters. Wind negligible in the firebase. Her finger found the trigger. But before she could fire, Rivera looked directly at her. Despite the distance, despite the smoke, he looked right at her position, and he smiled. Then he raised a radio to his mouth and spoke. 5 seconds later, a mortar round landed 10 feet from Maya's tower. The explosion threw her sideways. She hit the tower floor hard. Her rifle flew from her hands, blood in her mouth, ears screaming. She tried to stand. The world tilted, everything spinning. Through the haze, she saw Taliban fighters climbing the tower ladder. Coming for her! She reached for her sidearm, drew it, fired 3 times. 2 Taliban dropped. The third kept coming. Maya fired again. Click, empty. The Taliban reached the top, raised his rifle. Then his head exploded. Webb stood at the base of the tower, rifle smoking. Get down here! Maya half climbed, half fell down the ladder. Webb caught her. You good? No. Can you fight? Yes. Then fight. They fell back to this final defensive line. Morrison was there, still commanding despite his wound. Torres was there, still fighting despite a shrapnel cut across his face. Kim was there, handling communications with shaking hands. 22 Marines left, against 50-plus Taliban. The math was not good. Morrison keyed the emergency frequency. Any station this net, this is Firebase Olympus. We are under coordinated assault. Multiple casualties. Requesting immediate air support in QRF. The response came back, broken by static. Olympus, QRF en route. ETA 40 minutes. Hang on, 40 minutes. They had maybe 10. The Taliban massed for a final push. Maya could see them forming up. Professional tactics, textbook assault formation. Then she saw Rivera again, standing behind the assault line, watching, waiting for his victory. Maya picked up a discarded rifle, checked the magazine, half full. She looked at Morrison. Sir, I need to get to higher ground. There is no higher ground. We're surrounded. The operations bunker, or what's left of it. If I can get on top of the rubble, I'll have elevation on their assault line. That's a suicide run. You'll never make it. I'll make it. Morrison studied her face. What's your plan? Kill Rivera. Without him directing them, they lose coordination. Might give us enough chaos to hold until QRF arrives. Might is a hell of a gamble. It's the only gamble we have. Morrison nodded once. Do it. We'll cover you. Maya sprinted from the perimeter. Behind her, Marines opened up with everything they had, suppressing fire, forcing Taliban heads down. She ran through smoke and fire. Bullets snapped past. She did not stop. The operations bunker was a crater now. Concrete chunks scattered everywhere. She climbed the rubble, slipped, climbed again, reached the top. From here, she could see the entire Firebase, the Taliban assault line, and Rivera. She settled prone, rifle up, scope on target. Rivera was still directing, still confident, still smiling. Maya calculated. 700 meters, smoke affecting visibility, wind variable from the fires, target moving. She breathed out, waited for her heartbeat to slow between shots. Rivera stopped moving, turned to face the eastern perimeter, presenting his profile. Maya fired. The bullet crossed 700 meters and entered Rivera's chest 2 inches left of center. He dropped like a cut string. The Taliban assault line faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. Their commander was down. Maya did not wait. She acquired the next leader, a Taliban fighter with a radio who was trying to reorganize. Fired. He went down. Another fighter tried to take command. Fired. Down. She worked through the leadership, one shot at a time, methodical, professional. The Taliban assault broke. Without coordination, without command, they scattered. Some retreating through the breach, some trying to surrender, some fighting on in small, confused groups. The Marines surged forward, pushing them back, reclaiming ground. Maya stayed on the rubble pile, providing overwatch, covering her people. 20 minutes later, the sound of helicopters filled the air. Apache gunships, Chinooks with the quick reaction force. The cavalry had arrived. The Taliban still on the Firebase surrendered or died. The ones who had fled were chased down by the Apaches. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Firebase Olympus was secured. The cost was heavy, 14 Marines dead, 18 wounded, but they had held. Maya climbed down from the rubble and walked through the Firebase. Bodies everywhere. Friendly and enemy mixed together in the democracy of death. She found Morrison near the medical tent. His shoulder had been rebandaged. He looked 10 years older than yesterday. Chen, hell of a shot. Thank you, sir. Rivera, who was he really? I don't know, but I'm guessing we'll find out he was never in our system. Fake identity, inserted specifically for this operation. A mole inside a mole. Morrison shook his head. Blake was the distraction. Rivera was the real threat. Yes, sir. You saw it when nobody else did. I saw patterns. Took me too long to connect them. You connected them when it mattered. Morrison extended his hand. You saved us. All of us. Maya looked at his hand, took it. Just doing my job, sir. Your job is shooting. What you did was more than that. Maybe. Or maybe she had just been watching while everyone else slept. The sun climbed higher. The QRF started clearing bodies and securing the perimeter. Helicopters came and went with wounded and supplies. Maya found a quiet corner and sat down. Her hands were shaking now. The adrenaline crash hitting hard. Webb found her there. You okay? No. Yeah, me neither. He sat beside her. They're saying you killed Rivera from 700 meters while under fire. That true? Closer to 720. Jesus! Webb looked at her. You know what you are, Chen? What? A ghost. You see things in the dark that nobody else can see, and you kill things that need killing. That's not normal. That's something else. Maya thought about that. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Webb stood. Get some rest. We're extracting in 6 hours. Whole Firebase is being abandoned. After he left, Maya sat alone and looked at the valley, beautiful and terrible and painted in blood. She thought about Rivera's smile, about how he had known exactly where she was, about how this had all been a game and he had almost won. But games required players who understood the rules. And Maya Chen did not play by anyone's rules but her own. She stood, picked up her rifle, and went back to watching. Because that's what she did. That's who she was. The girl who would not sleep, the watcher in the dark. And somewhere in the valley, something moved. She saw it. She always did. The extraction helicopters came at dawn, black against a sky that was trying to decide between red and gold. They descended through smoke that still rose from Firebase Olympus like the breath of something dying. Maya Chen stood at the eastern wall, rifle slung, watching the Chinooks settle onto the landing zone with mechanical precision. Dust and ash swirled in the rotor wash, covering everything in a fine gray coating that looked like the end of the world. Behind her, the fire base was being systematically dismantled. Marines moving with exhausted efficiency, packing equipment, destroying what could not be carried, preparing to abandon a position they had bled to hold. 14 body bags lay in careful rows near the helipad. 14 reasons why this place would be remembered as something more than just another dot on a map. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb approached, limping slightly from a shrapnel wound in his calf that he refused to have checked. His face was streaked with soot and dried blood that was not entirely his own. They're loading the wounded first, then the dead, then us. His voice was rough from smoke and shouting. Morrison says you're on the first bird out. Why me? Because you're the one who saved us. He wants you safe before anything else can go wrong. Maya looked at the body bags. I didn't save everyone. You saved who you could. That's all anyone can do. Webb paused, studying her face. How many did you kill yesterday? She had counted, could not help counting. 17 confirmed, maybe more. 17 Taliban who would have killed us if you hadn't killed them first. That's not a sin, Chen. That's mathematics. But it did not feel like mathematics. It felt like weight. 17 more ghosts to add to the 6 from Syria. 23 faces she would see every time she closed her eyes. 23 voices asking why they had to die while she got to live. The first Chinook lifted off with the wounded. Maya watched it climb through the smoke and bank toward the south, toward safety, toward hospitals and hot food and people who had not spent the last 48 hours learning new ways to die. Lieutenant Jake Morrison walked over, his arm in a proper sling now, his uniform torn and bloodstained. He looked like he had aged a decade overnight. Maybe he had. Sergeant Chen, a word before you go. She followed him away from the noise of the helicopters. Morrison stopped at the eastern tower, or what was left of it. Shrapnel had torn chunks out of the metal structure. The ladder was twisted. The platform where she had spent so many hours watching was half collapsed. I owe you an apology, Morrison said. Sir, you don't owe me anything. I do. I doubted you. For days I thought you were damaged, unreliable, seeing threats that weren't there. He looked at the ruined firebase. Turns out you were the only one seeing clearly. I wasn't seeing clearly, sir. I was just looking harder than everyone else. That's what makes a good sniper. And a good Marine. Morrison extended his hand. Thank you. For not giving up. For not backing down. For being right when it mattered. Maya shook his hand. What happens now? Intelligence will debrief us. They'll want to know everything about Rivera, about the tunnels, about how we missed an infiltration that deep. Morrison's expression hardened. They'll want to know how a fake Marine inserted himself into our supply chain and damn near destroyed an entire firebase. He was good, professional, trained. He was more than that, he was patient. 6 months Blake was working for them, and he never made contact with her. Kept his operation completely separate. That takes discipline. Morrison paused. Makes you wonder how many others there are. The thought settled into Maya's stomach like ice water. Rivera had not been a lone wolf. He had been part of something larger. An organization that could create fake identities, infiltrate military logistics, coordinate complex operations across multiple cells. Sir, the devices he brought, the transmitters, were they recovered? Most of them. A few were damaged in the explosions. Intel is analyzing them now. What do they think they are? Morrison hesitated. Off the record? Yes, sir. They think they're Chinese-made, high-end electronic warfare equipment, not something Taliban could get on their own. He lowered his voice. This wasn't just a Taliban operation, Chen. Someone bigger was backing them, someone with resources and technology. Maya thought about Rivera's smile, about how confident he had been, about how close he had come to succeeding. They'll try again, she said quietly. Probably, but not here. Olympus is done. We're salting the earth on our way out, collapsing the tunnels, destroying the infrastructure, making sure nobody can use this position again. And the Taliban on the ridge? Apaches swept them this morning. The ones who didn't surrender scattered into the mountains. They're someone else's problem now. The second Chinook landed. Corporal Ryan Torres supervised the loading of the body bags. Each one handled with careful dignity. each one a name that would be read at a memorial service somewhere far from this place. Maya recognized some of the names, had fought beside some of them, shared meals with others. Now they were going home in aluminum coffins to families who would spend the rest of their lives trying to understand how their sons and daughters and husbands had died in a place they could not even pronounce. "You should get on the next bird," Morrison said, "before I change my mind and make you help with the demo." Maya nodded and walked toward the landing zone. Webb was there, organizing the final loads. "This is you," he said, gesturing to the Chinook that was spooling up its rotors. "You're not coming? I'm on the last bird. Someone has to make sure we don't leave anything useful behind." Maya climbed aboard and found a Webb seat. Around her, other Marines settled in with the hollow-eyed look of people who had survived something they had not expected to survive. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. The Chinook lifted off. Through the open ramp, Maya watched Firebase Olympus shrink below. From the air, it looked like a wound in the mountains, smoke and ruin and the dark scars of battle. Then it disappeared behind a ridge and was gone. The flight to Bagram took 90 minutes. Maya spent it staring at nothing, her mind replaying the last 3 days in endless loop. The dogs going silent, the hair on her rifle, Blake's confession, the tunnel network, Rivera's smile, the missiles, the bodies. All of it a cascade of small failures and smaller victories that had somehow added up to survival. When they landed at Bagram, the wounded were rushed to the hospital. The dead were carried to the morgue with full honors. The rest of them were directed to temporary barracks and told to await debriefing. Maya found an empty bunk, set down her rifle, and tried to sleep. But sleep would not come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the scope picture. 17 faces, 17 trigger pulls, 17 people who had been alive and were now dead because of her. After 2 hours of lying awake, she gave up and went outside. The base was massive compared to Olympus. Thousands of troops, aircraft landing and taking off constantly. The machinery of war operating at full capacity. She walked to the perimeter and looked out at the mountains. Somewhere beyond those peaks was Olympus, already being erased by demolition teams. Soon it would be nothing but a memory and a classified after-action report that nobody would read. "Can't sleep either?" She turned. Private First Class Devin Kim stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking as exhausted as she felt. "No, yeah, me neither." He moved to stand beside her. "Keep seeing it. The explosions, the bodies, all of it." Maya did not respond. Kim was quiet for a moment, then spoke again. "I need to tell you something. I've been holding it in, and it's eating me alive." She looked at him. "What?" "The night before the attack, when you came to the comms tent and asked about the handwriting in the log. You were right. It wasn't Torres who wrote those entries." Maya's entire body went still. "What?" "It was me, both sections. I wrote them both. But I changed my handwriting on purpose for the second half." Kim's voice was shaking. "Rivera told me to do it. Said it was a security test. Said he was working with intel to check for infiltration." "When did he tell you this?" 3 days before the attack. He pulled me aside during the resupply and said he was running a counterintelligence operation. Needed me to create inconsistencies in my logs to see if anyone noticed. Said if anyone asked, to lie and say Torres wrote it. And you believed him? He had credentials. Knew the right codes. Sounded official. Kim's face was twisted with guilt. "I thought I was helping. I thought I was part of something important. I didn't know he was setting us up." Maya felt anger rising but forced it down. Kim had been manipulated, used. Rivera had been playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. "Did you tell Morrison?" "Not yet. I was scared. Thought maybe I'd be charged with helping the enemy." Kim looked at her. "But you deserve to know. You were right about everything and I helped gaslight you." "You didn't know." "That's not an excuse. I should have questioned it. Should have verified." Kim pulled something from his pocket, a small flash drive. "This is everything, all my logs, all my communications, everything I remember about Rivera. Maybe it will help intel figure out who he really was." Maya took the flash drive. "I'll make sure they get it. Thank you." Kim turned to leave, then stopped. "Chen, the way you kept looking, the way you never stopped questioning, that's what saved us. Don't ever lose that." He walked away. Maya stood alone again, holding the flash drive, feeling the weight of revelation. Rivera had been more sophisticated than anyone had realized. He had not just infiltrated the supply chain. He had manipulated personnel, created false trails, set traps within traps, and he had almost pulled it off. The debriefing started the next morning. Intelligence officers from multiple agencies. Everyone who had been at Olympus was interviewed separately. Hours of questions about timelines, observations, decisions. Maya's session lasted 6 hours. They wanted every detail, every moment from when she arrived until the extraction. She told them everything, the days, the hair, Blake, the tunnels, Rivera, all of it. The lead interrogator was a colonel whose name tag read Harris. He listened without interrupting, making notes on a tablet. When she finished, he set down the tablet and looked at her. Sergeant Chen, your file says you've had psychological difficulties since Syria. Post-traumatic stress, recommended for medical discharge. Yes, sir. Yet your performance at Olympus was exemplary. You identified threats, took decisive action, and killed 17 enemy combatants with precision fire under extreme conditions. Yes, sir. How do you explain the discrepancy? Maya thought about how to answer. Sir, Syria broke something in me, made me see threats everywhere, made me question everything. At Olympus, that wasn't a disability, it was exactly what was needed. Harris nodded slowly. Broken in the right way for the right moment. Something like that. The rifle you sleep with, the constant vigilance, the pattern recognition. Those are symptoms of PTSD, but they're also the traits of an exceptionally effective sniper. I suppose they are. Harris leaned back. We're going to recommend you for the Silver Star, for actions above and beyond. Morrison's already submitted the paperwork. I don't want a medal, sir. Why not? Because I killed 17 people. That's not something to celebrate. You killed 17 enemy combatants who were trying to kill your unit. That's exactly what we train you to do. It doesn't feel like victory. Harris was quiet for a moment. No, it never does, but it's still worth recognizing. He stood. You're being reassigned. New orders cut this morning. You're going back to Konus, Quantico. They want you to teach sniper tactics. Maya felt something cold in her chest. Sir, I'm not ready to stop being operational. The Corps thinks otherwise. You've done your time in the field. Time to pass on what you've learned to the next generation. And if I refuse, then we process your medical discharge and you go home anyway. At least this way you stay in uniform. Harris picked up his tablet. Take the win, Sergeant. Not everyone gets to choose how their war ends. After the debriefing, Maya found Webb in the temporary barracks. He was packing his gear, getting ready for his own flight out. Heard you're heading stateside, he said. Yeah, Quantico, teaching. Could be worse, could be dead. Could be. Webb zipped up his duffel and sat on the bunk. You know what I keep thinking about? The tunnels. How long they must have been digging. How many times they were right underneath us and we never knew. Makes you wonder what else we're not seeing. Makes me want to retire and never think about it again. Webb looked at her. But you won't do that. You'll keep looking, keep questioning. That's who you are. Is that a good thing? For you? Probably not. For the Marines you'll be training? Absolutely. He stood and extended his hand. It's been an honor, Chen. Stay sharp. She shook his hand. You too, Staff Sergeant. Webb picked up his duffel and walked out. Maya sat alone in the barracks and realized she did not know what came next. The war had been her entire life for so long. The watching, the waiting, the constant vigilance. What did you do when the war was over, but the vigilance remained? Her flight left the next morning. A military transport packed with personnel rotating home. Maya found a seat near the back and settled in with her rifle across her lap. The loadmaster gave her a look but did not say anything. Everyone knew not to separate a sniper from their weapon. The plane lifted off and turned west. Below, Afghanistan spread out like a map of scars, mountains and valleys where people had been fighting for thousands of years and would probably fight for thousands more. She had been a small part of that for a brief moment, had killed and survived and moved on. The plane climbed above the clouds. Maya closed her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, she slept. No dreams, no Syria, no dead faces asking why. Just darkness and silence and the hum of engines carrying her home. She woke 12 hours later to the announcement that they were descending into Dover Air Force Base, Delaware, the United States. Home. Except it did not feel like home. It felt like foreign territory where everyone spoke her language, but nobody spoke her dialect, where the rules were different and the threats were invisible, and the war was something that happened on television instead of outside your tent. Processing took 2 days. Medical checks. Gear turn-in, administrative paperwork. The bureaucratic machinery of the military grinding through her existence and spitting out new orders. Report to Quantico, Scout Sniper School, Instructor Cadre. She caught a bus to Virginia, watched the landscape change from military installation to civilian world. Cars and shopping centers, and people who had no idea what was happening on the other side of the planet. Quantico was professional and clean and ordered. Everything in its place, everyone following regulations. No explosions, no bodies, no enemies sneaking through tunnels under your feet. She reported to the Scout Sniper School and met the chief instructor, a gunnery sergeant named Cole who had the look of someone who had seen everything twice and was not impressed by any of it. Sergeant Chen, read your file. Impressive work at Olympus. Thank you, Gunny. Don't thank me yet. Teaching is harder than doing. You're going to have to take everything you know and break it down into steps that teenage Marines can understand and execute. Cole handed her a schedule. You start Monday, 5 classes, 20 students each. Your job is to make them not die when they get downrange. I'll do my best. Your best got 17 confirmed kills in one engagement. I expect you to pass that knowledge on. Cole paused. But Chen, leave the trauma at the door. These kids need tactics, not therapy. Maya nodded and left, found her assigned quarters. A small room with a bed and a desk and a window that looked out over the training ranges. She unpacked her gear, cleaned her rifle, arranged everything in precise order. Then she sat on the bed and realized she had absolutely no idea what to do with herself when nobody was trying to kill her. The first week of teaching was brutal. The students were eager but raw. They knew how to shoot but not how to think, how to follow orders but not how to improvise, how to see targets but not how to see patterns. Maya taught them everything she knew: wind reading, range estimation, breathing control. But more than that, she taught them to watch, to question, to trust their instincts when something felt wrong. You're not just snipers, she told them on the first day. You're the eyes of your unit. When everyone else is focused on the fight in front of them, you're watching the flanks, the rear, the dead ground. You're looking for what everyone else is missing. One student raised his hand. Sergeant, how do you know what to look for? You look for what doesn't belong, what's out of place, what's too perfect or too broken. She thought about the dogs going silent, about the hair on her rifle. You look for the small things that everyone else ignores because they're too small to matter, until they're the only things that do. By the end of the first week, she had their attention. By the end of the second week, she had their respect. They called her the watcher behind her back. She heard it and did not discourage it. Better they learn from someone who knew the cost of not watching. 3 weeks into the assignment, Maya was called to the base commander's office. A colonel whose name was Anderson and whose walls were covered with citations and photographs from 3 decades of service. Sergeant Chen, sit. She sat. Anderson pulled a folder from his desk. Your Silver Star came through. Ceremony is next week. Family's invited if you want them there. Maya did not have family, had been a foster kid who bounced through 6 homes before aging out and joining the Marines. The Corps was the only family she had. I'll be there alone, sir. Understood. Anderson set down the folder. I also have something else. An offer, off the record for now. Sir, there's a unit forming, specialized reconnaissance, deep penetration missions, high risk, high value. They're looking for people with your skill set. Anderson leaned forward. People who can see what others can't, who can operate independently in hostile armed territory, who can make hard decisions when nobody's looking. Maya felt something stir in her chest. What kind of unit? The classified kind. The kind that doesn't officially exist. The kind that does the jobs nobody wants to admit need doing. Is this CIA? Adjacent, joint operation, military oversight, but intelligence tasking? Anderson paused. They read your file. They're interested, but only if you're interested. Maya thought about the classroom full of young Marines learning to shoot, about the safety of Quantico, about nights without explosions and days without watching for threats, about how none of it felt right. I'm interested, she said. I thought you might be. Anderson pulled out a business card, plain white, just a phone number. Call this when you're ready. They'll handle the rest. What about my teaching position? We'll find a replacement. Good instructors are valuable, but not irreplaceable. People like you, on the other hand. Anderson stood. Think about it. You don't have to decide today. But Maya already knew her decision. Had known it the moment Anderson mentioned deep penetration and high risk. She was not built for safety, was not wired for normal. Syria had broken her in a very specific way, and Olympus had proven that the break was not a weakness. It was an adaptation. The Silver Star ceremony was held on a Friday morning. Formation in dress blues. Speeches about valor and sacrifice. The medal pinned to her chest by a general whose name she immediately forgot. Afterward, there was a reception. Handshakes and congratulations from people who had not been there and could not understand. Maya endured it with mechanical politeness until she could escape outside. Morrison was there, also in dress blues, his arms still bandaged but healing. He found her on the parade ground, away from the crowd. "Congratulations, Sergeant." "Thank you, sir. You deserve it. What you did at Olympus was extraordinary." Maya looked at the medal on her chest, a silver star on a blue ribbon. Pretty, meaningless. "Sir, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Do you still cease it? The Firebase, the attack." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Every night, every time I close my eyes." "Does it get better?" "I don't know yet. Ask me in a year." He paused. "But Chen, what we did there, holding that position, saving who we could, that matters. Don't let the ghost convince you otherwise." "I'll try, sir." Morrison nodded, walked back to the reception. Maya stood alone on the parade ground and felt the weight of the medal pulling at her uniform. 17 confirmed kills, 23 if you counted Syria. All of them necessary, all of them justified, all of them haunting her anyway. She made the phone call that night. The number Anderson had given her. A woman answered on the second ring. "Yes? This is Sergeant Maya Chen. I was told to call this number." "We've been expecting you. Are you ready to proceed?" "Yes." "Good. You'll receive orders in 72 hours. Destroy this number after we hang up." The line went dead. Maya deleted the number from her phone and went to bed. 3 days later, new orders arrived. Report to Fort Bragg. Detachment assignment. Further details to follow. She packed her gear, cleaned her rifle one more time, said goodbye to nobody because there was nobody to say goodbye to. The drive to North Carolina took 6 hours. Maya spent it thinking about what came next, about missions that did not officially exist, about operating alone in places where backup was a luxury and mistakes were fatal, about doing the job nobody wanted to admit needed doing. Fort Bragg was massive and secretive, home to special forces and units that did not advertise their existence. She reported to an unmarked building on the edge of the base and was met by a man in civilian clothes who did not give his name. "Sergeant Chen, follow me." He led her through corridors that had no signs and doors that required 3 separate security checks. Deep in the building, they entered a conference room where 4 other people waited, all military, all with the same look in their eyes that Maya had seen in her own mirror. The look of people who had seen too much and decided to see more anyway. The civilian spoke. "Welcome to Task Force Sentinel. You've been selected because you possess unique capabilities that standard military operations cannot utilize effectively. You see threats others miss. You operate effectively under psychological stress. You make decisions without hesitation when lives are at stake." He pulled up a map on the screen, locations marked across multiple countries. Some Maya recognized, others she did not. "Our mission is to identify and neutralize high-value targets before they become active threats. We work in the gray areas. We do not follow conventional rules of engagement. We do not report through conventional chains of command. We answer to a joint oversight committee that most people in the Pentagon don't know exists." One of the other operators spoke up. "What kind of targets?" "The kind that require someone willing to pull the trigger when nobody's watching. The kind where success means nobody ever knows you were there." The civilian looked directly at Maya. "The kind where hesitation gets people killed." Maya felt Syria stirring in the back of her mind. The children, the choice, the consequences. "I understand," she said. "Do you? Because this isn't conventional warfare. There are no medals, no recognition, no glory, just the mission and the silence afterward." "I don't need medals." The civilian smiled slightly. "No, I suppose you don't." He handed out folders to each person. "Your first assignment briefs are inside. You have 48 hours to prepare. Questions?" Nobody had questions. They all knew what they had signed up for. The work that happened in shadows. The kills that would never be confirmed. The war that never ended because nobody admitted it existed. Maya opened her folder. Inside was a photograph of a man. Middle-aged, businessman suit, unremarkable. Except for the notation at the bottom. High-value target, weapons trafficking, responsible for arming insurgent cells in 3 countries. Current location, Istanbul. Estimated civilian exposure, high. Authorization level, executive. She closed the folder and felt something settle inside her. This was what she was built for. Not teaching, Not garrison duty, not safety. The hunt, the watch, the moment of decision when everything balanced on a single trigger pull. The briefing continued for 3 hours. Tactics, protocols, extraction procedures, everything wrapped in layers of classification and compartmentalization. When it ended, the civilian pulled Maya aside. Your file from Syria, the hesitation, the consequences, that's why you're here. Sir? Because you understand the cost of both action and inaction. Because you've failed and survived it. Because you know that sometimes the right choice is the one that keeps you awake at night. I'm not sure that's a qualification. It's the only qualification that matters. He handed her a satellite phone. Your handler will contact you at 0600. Be ready to move by 0800. Maya took the phone and left. Outside, the sun was setting over Fort Bragg, painting the sky in shades of red and gold that reminded her of Firebase Olympus. She thought about Morrison's question. Do you still see it? Every night, she had answered. Every time I close my eyes. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the ghosts were not a punishment. Maybe they were a reminder of what happened when you stopped watching, when you stopped questioning, when you trusted that someone else was paying attention. She walked to her temporary quarters and laid out her gear. Rifle, optics, ammunition, the tools of her trade. Tomorrow she would hunt again, would watch another target through another scope, would make another decision that would haunt her forever. But tonight, she was just a Marine standing in the fading light, preparing for a war that most people would never know existed. She cleaned her rifle one more time. Muscle memory, meditation. Somewhere in the world, threats were forming, enemies were planning, people were preparing to do harm. And Maya Chen would be watching, because that was what she did. That was who she was. The girl who would not sleep. The watcher in the dark. The ghost who saw ghosts. And when the time came, she would pull the trigger, would make the hard choice, would add another face to the collection of people who had died because of her and because of the mission, and because that was the mathematics of war. 17 confirmed kills, soon to be 18, and somewhere in the distance, something moved in the shadows. She saw it. She always did. The satellite phone rang at exactly 600. Maya answered. Chen, this is Overwatch. Mission is active. Target is mobile. You deploy in 90 minutes. Istanbul. Solo operation. Exfil on completion. Questions? Maya looked at her rifle, at the scope that had taken so many lives, at the tools that had defined her existence for so long. No questions. Good hunting, Watcher. The line went dead. Maya shouldered her pack and walked into the morning sun, ready to watch, ready to hunt, ready to do what nobody else would do, because someone had to. And she had been broken in exactly the right way. I spent 3 weeks researching what really happens when a Marine sees threats nobody else can see. Maya's story haunted me, not because of the 17 kills, but because of the 41 she saved by refusing to stop watching. To everyone asking, yes, tunnel infiltration tactics were real in Afghanistan. Yes, fake IDs have penetrated supply chains. The scary part? This happens more than we admit. What's your most unbelievable military story that turned out to be true? Drop it below. And if this one got you, hit that subscribe button. I've got 12 more like it coming.